Hi guys, Aidan here, one of the hosts of Kino Inferno, as you are well aware. Two things. Thing the first, we had some problems with my audio in this episode, so it is not as crisp as it usually is. Apologies for that, it does improve towards the end, but yeah, there's only so much you can do with the equipment we have. And thing the second, we wanted to give a big Kino Inferno shout out and an RIP to the late great Ivan Reitman, who, we wouldn't normally stop for a celebrity death like this, but we kind of felt like we wanted to just say a few words because, Ghostbusters is a key part of this podcast now somehow, and we feel that he's provided us with hours of fun and hours of entertainment, and given that he has worked closely with the subject of tonight's episode, not necessarily tonight's episode, you could be listening in the day, we felt we'd get Arnold's words on the death of Ivan Reitman into your ear holes. So Arnie has this to say on the subject. Ivan Reitman is a legend. In Hollywood, he was bigger than life. He was comedy royalty. In life, he was a mensch, a wonderful father and husband, a fantastic friend, a great human being. He was kind, he was generous, he was smart as hell, and he was always there for you. And we at Kino Inferno think we could all do with being a little more like Ivan. And also, without him, there'd be no busting. So, we wouldn't feel good. Anyway, on with the show. Hello, listeners. It is me,
What's
Arnold.
up?
You said you weren't going to interrupt me this time. You lied.
I know. Do you know why, Aiden? Because
Why?
I lied.
Yeah, you did. You did.
There
you
we
lied.
go.
Consider this a divorce. Anyway, listen. This is the season finale of Kino Inferno, season 1. So,
First of many.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We'll see if I can be bothered to do season 2. But you listen. So, listeners, normally we talk about 2 movies, linked by a theme, discuss them at length, and nothing of any note or value generally happens. But hopefully, you're entertained along the way. This episode will be no different. The main difference is we're not talking about any of these foreign films or cult movies or anything like that. Me and Mark, for the season finale, it's like the last day of school, and we've brought in a video because we can't be bothered to teach you science. So we brought in a video, we popped it on. It's a VHS. In fact, we've brought in 2 VHSs. Yeah, we've got 2 study periods to fill. How are we going to fill them? I've got 2 VHSs, both starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is the theme of today's podcast, I guess. Movies we like that feature Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And in this instance, it's best of the worst.
Are we actually calling it that?
Worst. I mean, we can.
Okay, if this is called best of the worst, I can only apologise, listeners. Because it's like Bratwurst, Arnold's Austrian.
Is it offensive?
I mean, is it more or less offensive than the time we did Asian Horror Madness and had a gong at the start?
I mean, I'm not taking any credit for that because I didn't edit that episode. So.
Neither did I.
So we brought you 2 videos, and yeah, they're 2 movies that we just like, and it means that we haven't got to go through all the
We
usual
just like
crap
these movies.
That we go through
This is it. We just like these.
It's the last episode of the season. We're tired.
We can't be
want to go home
bothered.
to our wives.
The last episode was 5 years long. This one...
It was.
This one's going to be short, to the point, and feature lots of us doing this.
So, fuck it. Predator, let's go.
There is something else. When the big man was killed, you must have wanted it. Its blood was on the leaves.
If it bleeds, we can kill it. think this Boy Scout bullshit's gonna work?
It can see our tripwires. Maybe it can't see this. Instead of complaining, maybe it should help.
Chronicling the ill-fated mission of an elite squad of manly-as-fuck paramilitary soldiers who descend upon an undisclosed Central American rainforest, Predator is the action, sci-fi, horror hybrid classic that I absolutely fucking love, and you've definitely seen, so you don't really need me to outline the plot.
What if someone hasn't seen Predator?
Then why are they listening to this show, Aidan? Why are they listening to this show?
And if you haven't seen Predator, rethink yourself.
Like, sort out your
Rebuild
life.
yourself, bitch. Rebuild yourself, bitch.
Rebuild yourself, bitch.
If you haven't seen Predator, just go fuck yourself.
No. So I will summarize Predator, because even though we've all seen it, every single one of you, if you haven't seen it, you're lying. No, so essentially, yeah, Predator tells the story of Arnie's character.
Why would they lie? Why would they lie to us, Mark?
For clout, I guess.
For clout! I'd lie to Kino Inferno and I'd do it again.
Right, I'm going to summarise. You can tell that we've just had enough of this show at this stage.
Let me have a go. Okay.
Go on.
Mango into jungle. Alien kill them.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Man kill alien.
Yeah, it's basically about a bunch of paramilitary who are led by Arnie's character, Dutch, and all these guys...
Yeah, Dutch.
Yeah, Dutch.
I love that they call him Dutch. Yeah. And he's there like, hello, it is me, Dutch.
I was like, wow, that man is so Dutch.
That's the Dutchest motherfucker I've ever clapped eyes on. I think they missed the trick right. They should have called him Dutch, and they should have called Carl Weathers' character Whitey. I think that would have been hilarious.
That's veered into some territories, much like the characters in this movie. So...
Mark's powering up the segue there.
You should know I'm the king of the segue, right? That's my role in this show.
I'm going to make a compilation of your best segues and put it on YouTube.
I'd love that. I would love that so much. Right, so Dutch and his band of muscly fucks are going into this rainforest because
they are so muscular. And let me tell you,
muscly.
The CIA has not got them pushing too many pencils.
God no, because immediately, like, one of the first things we see is just they're all just sort of stood around flexing, and Arnie's smoking that big cigar, and they're all just glistening with sweat. Like, everyone in this movie is so sweaty, like, constantly.
Yeah.
And then we have that amazing shot.
Everyone looks like a defrosting slab of meat.
Basically. But within like 5 minutes...
Carl Weathers is fucking ripped in this as well.
He is, and that's why I was about to say we get that amazing shot not even 5 minutes in, where Carl Weathers walks up to Arnie and he just says the immortal line, "Dylan, you son of a bitch," and we get the manliest shot in all of cinema.
What's the matter? CIA got you pushing too many pencils.
And I feel like if you don't fall in love with this movie at that moment, then there's no hope for you. Like, that's it.
That's the moment that boys become men.
Literally. Like, honestly, that gives me a semi every time. No.
I was going to ask you, how many people do you think have realised they're gay watching this movie?
I think it's definitely awakened a lot of things in a lot of people.
I was watching this movie, right? And this is a movie about a sneaky buff alien in fishnets and body armour chasing down a bunch of big, muscly, oily men.
It's kind of like Rocky Horror, but for manly men, really, isn't it?
And I think this movie has made a lot of muscle daddies over the
Absolutely.
years.
Like, this movie is so masculine.
And I shouldn't wager that it's a few leather daddies also.
I mean, this movie is so masculine, it makes me lose my manhood and regrow it. Like, it's so manly. Like, just testosterone just seeps off the screen in this film.
Yeah, I want to say, if there's any trans people who want to transition into men, just watching this film every day will pump you full of testosterone.
Like, you'll save so much money.
You don't need to go to the NHS. They're horrible with this stuff anyway. Just watch Predator on loop. And by the end of it, you will be a man. You'll be 2 men. That's how manly you'll be.
There is one thing I do want to point out, just to try and get us back on the rails, because we have thoroughly chucked ourselves off the track at this point.
Okay, we'll go through the characters in a minute. We'll do like we did with Cats.
We will. The one thing that I do want to point out, though, is before we get to the shot that turns boys into men, is we have the very.
What's the
opening of
matter,
movie.
Mark? What culture got you pushing too many pencils?
I was waiting for you to say that. I knew that was coming. But no, the opening shot of the movie, I do kind of take a bit of issue with. I don't like the fact that the opening shot of the movie shows you an alien ship plummeting towards Earth.
It's kind of like the only. It's weird. This happens in two movies. It happens in The Thing as well.
It does.
Where it just shows you a weird alien ship, and it's like, guys, it's fine. We get it.
I think it's also because in like something like The Thing, just from like the title The Thing and the posters and stuff, you get the impression that some kind of like alien and creature and stuff. Like with Predator,
Yeah, it's a thing.
With Predator, it's like part of the film's appeal and the mystery of the movie is like, what is the thing that's in the woods? Like, because you don't immediately assume that it's an alien or something like that. It's only that beginning shot that really sort of gives you that idea, because throughout the course of the movie, the Predator's established as being this kind of unseen threat, and it has like thermal vision, but that doesn't necessarily mean.
That's the thing about that, though. I mean, the thing that was kind of interesting about this movie, watching it, because I hadn't seen it for a while, but I had the memory of the various sequels and the Alien vs Predator movies, all of which are great.
Strongly disagree, but
yeah, they're absolutely awful. The aliens are the Alien vs Predator. I mean, but
yeah.
Some of the Predator sequels are okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is this: I forgot how much lore isn't in this movie. Like, there's not really any discussion of what the Predator is.
Aside from the one scene with the only female character in the movie, Anna.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. But there's no... correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no point in this movie where they're like, it is an alien who hunts for sport.
No.
Like, they're just kind of like...
It's not a case... They don't explicitly say that, but like characters deduce that, and you kind of get telltale signs from the way it behaves that that's what it does, but... subsequent movies discuss the culture of the Predators. Yeah, and they talk about like their rites of passage and the actual behaviours of the creature and stuff. Yeah, whereas the first movie is quite vague.
Which, by the way, they are called the Yuja.
Yes, they are. But we're just going to call them predators.
Yeah, it's kind of like how the alien is a xenomorph, but just call it an alien.
Yeah, or perfect organism is the other thing that people always call the alien as well.
No, that's dumb. It's a xenomorph.
Xenomorph sounds cool as well, that's the thing. As just predator. Like, predator just sounds cool. Whatever. But I think, one of the main things that I do like, before we sort of delve into all the characters and stuff, though, one thing that I do really like about this movie is few movies are capable of shifting genre so seamlessly, I think.
Yes. I do actually know a fun fact about this. You probably know this. But, so the movie you're right. It's kind of like in two halves. Like, the first half is like men on a mission, war movie. Kind of reminiscent of Vietnam movies, obviously, because of the jungle and everything. Mm-hmm. And it's like all the guys with their hardware and everything. And then the second half of the movie pretty quickly transitions into sci-fi horror. They're all being stalked by the creature. I do happen to know that the two halves of the movie were filmed almost completely independently of one another. Partially because the original Predator costume they had, which is like a big red duck thing that was going to house the muscles from Brussels himself, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, which is weird. It's so weird that he was going to play this character.
But yeah, it looked terrible on camera. The design of the creature was awful. And so they were like, right, we can't make this movie because this looks like ass. So basically, Stan Winston, who was also on Terminator 2, special effects guru, no longer with us, I believe.
I'm not entirely sure.
Right, let's look it up on Wikipedia real quick. I'm pretty sure I read he died. Sorry if he's alive.
We never do any research.
Never ever. No, he is... Oh, yeah, he's dead. Yeah, he's long dead. He died in 2008. Okay.
Oh, okay, yeah, long dead.
Oh, thank God, he's long dead. I mean, thank God from an editing point of view, not for he's a legend of the craft.
His death is tragic. Like we lost an icon.
Yeah, because he made all kinds of great shit. Like if you've watched a movie from the 80s and 90s that had creatures or robots in it, the odds are it was this dude. If it wasn't the Jim Henson Company, it was Stan Winston. You know. Anyway, the point is this: Stan had to redesign the creature because it was not happening. So they brought him in, redesigned the creature. They'd had limited time to do so, but they wanted something that looked cool, looked badass. He was on a flight with none other than James Cameron.
This story is 100% true. I just want to make sure the listeners know this.
And he turned to little Jimmy Cameron and he said, I've got to redesign this creature for Predator. They've got this weird red duck thing with Jean-Claude Van Damme in it. We're not doing that anymore. JCVD, off the movie. Too hot, he says. Also true. And James Cameron turns to Stan Winston. A heavenly choir sings behind him as he does so. And he says, I've always wanted to see a creature with mandibles. And lo, the Predator was born. From that, Stan Winston designed the Predator. He was like, do you know what? You want mandibles? You got them, baby. There's a creature with mandibles. And that's why we have the Predator. I'm not entirely sure where the dreadlocks come from. But there's cool nonetheless.
Yeah, another thing as well is another reason why I know that Van Damme was ousted from the movie, not only because apparently he was worried about constantly being shown wearing a suit, he obviously wanted to be in the movie and have people see that he was in it. It's also because Van Damme is only 5'9", and
yes.
Arnie and the rest of the cast are well over 6 foot. So it just wouldn't be believable that he would be imposing to them whatsoever, which is very true. Which is why they cast Kevin Peter Hall as the Predator, who is 7'2".
Yeah, he's huge.
He came off the back of doing Harry and the Hendersons and then played the Predator. That man has range, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, the original Predator. I'm saying it looks like. I mean, I might put a picture up on the Facebook so people know what it looks like. There's still kind of like an insecty vibe to it. But
like it looks. I think it doesn't look terrible. It just looks terrible for this movie.
It doesn't work at all, really. Like it's not on the same level as the original creature. But yeah, so that's kind of the Predator. I mean, this is also the thing that like I think makes this movie work outside of the fact that it's got some of the most memorable dialogue going. Right, is the Predator itself is sick as hell.
Like it's a great design. It's so iconic. It's intimidating. Like because I can genuinely remember the first time I saw this movie. I must have been, maybe 10, 11 years old or something. And for most of the movie, for most of like the first hour of the movie, you don't really see the Predator, because it's always cloaked. But there's that really great shot where it's hanging off the side of the tree, and for a split second, its cloaking device malfunctions, and you see it. And I can remember the first time I saw what it looked like, scared the fuck out of me.
Yeah, it looks so fucking cool.
And it's just metal as fuck. I love the way the Predator looked. And I think, compared to Alien, that's one of the few sort of blessings that the Predator sequels have had, is that they've expanded on the design of the Predator in really interesting ways, whereas I think the Alien sequels kind of went in a different direction. The sort of revised Alien designs are never really as cool as the ones in the first two movies.
Yeah, I think the thing with Alien is like they kind of got it right first time. And every subsequent thing, apart from like the Alien Queen, which is obviously cool.
Yeah, that's cool as
shit. But then they do all this, but they always do this dumb shit with Alien where it's like, what if there were alien dogs? What if they they take it the wrong way because they kind of do the whole like, well, it's a parasite. It takes the form of the thing that it comes out of, which it never quite works. Whereas the Predator, they kind of keep the core design, but they change the armor, or they change like certain aspects of it. Where it's like, it's just enough. It's just different enough that it feels like a new Predator or a new type of Predator.
Yeah,
and like the stuff like where in the. Yeah, whereas like in the sequels, they also establish there's different cultures of the Predator, of the Yuj. Mm-hmm. It's like there's some that like hunt for sport and they're like honorable warrior race, and then there's some like in Predators that are like just absolute barbarians. They just love to kill, basically.
And even though I don't particularly care for the Alien versus Predator movies, I like the idea in the first one that the aliens are basically used as fodder for teenage predators to train against to basically reach manhood. It's like their test to ascend to manhood, which is like conceptually like really quite interesting. It's a shame the movie is not particularly good.
Yeah, well the comics are cooler.
Yeah, the comics are much cooler, yeah.
But because the problem with the movies was they can never bring themselves to have one side really win. I mean, they kind of have the Predators are the more sympathetic side in Predator versus Alien versus Predator, sorry, because they're against the alien, and the alien is the ultimate evil, I suppose.
Well, I think it's because the aliens are like they're just like a hive mind of just killing. That's it. Like they don't really have any emotional range. They are just killing machines. Whereas the predators actually have like a sense of
they're somewhat human.
Yeah, exactly.
Also,
like, you can put character onto a predator.
The end of Alien vs Predator, the first one, has the sleigh ride of friendship, where the last human survivor and the last surviving predator have a little sleigh ride together.
They do. And then he brands her
cute.
with like an alien finger.
Yeah. He's like, "You're one of us now." Then when he right, this is not the Alien vs Predator podcast, but then when he dies and there's just the human left, the other predators turn up to like take the body back to Predator Planet, I guess, and they all like look at the human and they're like, "You're pretty sick, actually," and then they just leave. It's so dumb.
The dumbest thing, again, this is not the Alien versus Predator podcast, but what gets me the most about that entire end sequence in AVP is how that woman has not just succumbed to frostbite and hypothermia.
Yeah.
Because she's
and
just
also,
in like a very basic snowsuit fighting against the
and
alien
also
queen.
being branded by the alien.
Yeah.
Like, the Alien vs Predator movies completely depower the xenomorphs, and it's really annoying. Because in the Alien franchise, the xenomorphs are like, if one of them gets on your ship, you are FUKT fucked, right?
Literally.
Whereas, like, in Alien vs Predator, it's like, don't worry about it. Like,
Yeah, it'd be
one
fine.
predator can take out 5 of these guys, don't worry about it. And it's like, really? Because, I don't know. Because in the looping it back to the original, one human can take out a predator if he tries hard enough. So, are you really telling me the xenomorphs can't? Like, I mean, I guess they do kind of get all of them in the end. Like, but then again, what kind of manhood ritual is that? Just go and die? Like, that's not... You know what I'm saying? That's like going, our rite of passage is for humans to, like, go and arm wrestle a bear. Like, what?
You will die, but you'll be a man about it. That's what it is.
That's kind of the theme of this movie. If you're going to die, be a man about it.
Fight the walking vagina monster, become a man.
Yeah, there's so many vaginal aliens. And this is the thing. Fuck aliens. We've talked about this. Fuck them right off. And the Predator is no different, yeah? Coming to our planet, hunting us for sport? That's out of order, mate.
Where do they get off?
That is not cricket. That is simply not cricket. I mean, at least with the xenomorphs, we fucked around on their planet first, and
That's
they were
true.
like, right,
That's
time
true.
to die.
Like,
as they should. Because they've got the right mentality. They see an alien race and they go, time to die. Whereas...
Here it comes. It always comes back to Aiden's hatred of the aliens.
I'm just saying, I don't trust them.
Well, clearly, because you grew up watching films like this.
If they announced tomorrow, if Joe Biden came on the telly and was like, there's aliens, well, first of all, you'd assume we'd just gone senile. But then if some aliens actually turned up and were like, hey, we're here now, I'd be like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Get rid. I'm not saying genocide, listeners. I'm just saying don't allow them to settle.
I mean...
And if it comes to it...
Dangerously close to genocide. We are getting very sidelined. We are getting very sidelined. We were talking about Schwarzenegger, and now you're on to genocide, okay? It's a slippery slope. I see how we've got here. Wind your neck in.
Consider this a divorce.
So, Predator.
Says that to everyone he kills.
Predator.
Can shoot Sharon Stone in the face in that movie. Anyway, we're talking about Predator. So, we're going to go through the characters, yeah? Such as they are. So, our lead character is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Not playing a role, he's just himself.
Yeah.
But they keep calling him Major Alan Dutch Schaefer. And he's the leader of this, he says they're a rescue team at the start, because he says, we're not hitmen, we're a rescue team. Fuck you. But I've got to say, Dutch, the team you're operating with here, one of them is just strolling around with a minigun and clearly looking for any chance to use it.
A minigun called Old Painless. Let's not forget.
Yeah. One of them is like clearly, like fucking Bill Duke's character is clearly a mental case, Mac. Like from the start, he's like, I've got a knife and I'm going to fucking kill you, buddy.
Why is he, like, he's constantly shaving. Even when he's just shaved, he's shaving.
I think he just likes the feel of steel upon flesh.
He does, like... Yeah, his character is clearly deranged. Like, he's definitely, like, one of the casualties of Nam.
Anyway, the point is this. Dutch Schaefer, he says the movie keeps having him be like, we're not hitmen, we're rescue team, I don't do this kind of work. But, like, I think you do this kind of work, Dutch. Look at the team you've assembled.
And look at the sheer magnitude of the fucking assault you guys launch on these people.
Yeah, right.
Like, they killed the fuck out of these people.
So we should say, if people haven't seen... I mean, for the one person who hasn't seen Predator in the audience, like, So the start of this movie is Carl Weathers hires Dutch, Arnold, and his team of miscreants to go and basically, like they say, like they've lost some soldiers behind enemy lines in the jungle, right? So they go and wipe out these guerrillas and save the missing soldiers. So,
Not actual gorillas, I'll point out.
Apes. I'm sure everyone listening thought I meant apes.
They are in the jungle, okay? It's a possibility.
I mean, how Arnold Schwarzenegger's not been in a film called Guerrilla Warfare, where he fights an army of apes, I don't know.
That's the Planet of the Apes movie I want, goddammit.
They're going ape shit.
Anyway, yes, so they go in to rescue some Green Berets who have been taken by this sort
Yes.
of guerrilla insurgency group. And just kill the fuck out of these people.
Oh, they kill the living fuck out of these people.
Like,
Arnold gets a few one-liners in, he throws a knife at a guy, pinning him to the wall, and he goes, "Stick around."
which is just mwah, chef's kiss, iconic, love everything about it. They attack them with the minigun, they use grenade launchers, they blow up their buildings.
Fucking Mac is going mental with a knife at one point.
Like, they just kill the fuck out of these people.
And they clearly enjoy doing it.
Yeah, they do. And it's honestly psychotic behaviour.
Anyway, we get look, this is all over the place, right? So that we've established that massacre occurs. Let's talk about characters. So let's talk about Dutch. What do we think of the character of Dutch?
I like Dutch a lot, actually. I think I would say it's amongst one of my favourite Arnie performances. It's weird because it's simultaneously quite subdued, but also has some of the most classic Arnie sounds.
Yeah, he does a lot of like in this movie
and screaming and like I like him a lot in this movie. I think watching it, you get the impression that he's a very competent leader as well. I think I like him a lot in this movie. He's resourceful as well. Like, you know, he fucks the Predator up at the end ultimately. So
yeah, he does. Yeah, I mean, we'll get to it, but like, yeah, I do like he's constantly like, oh shit, like he's fucking amazing. Like the idea of casting Arnold Schwarzenegger as a man who's just like shitting himself constantly is incredible work from whoever made that casting decision. I mean, we should say this movie is directed by John McTiernan of Die Hard fame, so and of Legal Issues fame, but we won't talk about that.
Oh, I don't think I'm aware of that. You might have to tell me about that off mic.
Yeah, I don't think I think I've made it sound more sinister than
yeah, you made it sound very sinister. I thought we were going to some Thackeray Binks territory there.
No, so per Wikipedia, he pled guilty to perjury and lying to an FBI investigator.
Oh, was that it?
In regard to his hiring of the private investigator Anthony Pellicano in late 2000 to legally wiretap the phone calls of two people, one of whom was Charles Roven, a film producer and former president of Atlas Entertainment, who co-produced his remake of Rollerball. So he was incarcerated. So McTiernan was incarcerated in federal prison from April 2013 to Feb 2014, and during his imprisonment he filed for bankruptcy amidst foreclosure proceedings to his large ranch residence. So
wow,
there's a lot going on there.
There is. Wow, I did not know any of that.
McTiernan is quite the character, is all there is to say about that.
Evidently.
But yes, he's directed... he directed Die Hard most famously, probably.
Yeah,
and,
I think that's what everyone knows him from, really.
Hunt for Red October.
Yeah.
Last Action Hero with Arnie again. 13th Warrior, which, by the way, dope film.
Mm-hmm. Big love for that one.
So yeah, you get the idea. But yeah, so McTiernan is a skilled director, and I think he knows how to get what you need from Arnie in this movie. Because he wisely is like, let's not give Arnold too much dialogue. He has enough. He has enough to carry it through. And obviously he has some iconic lines like, stick around, CIA got to pushing too many pencils, and of course, get to the chopper!
And I think that's what I like a lot about Arnie in this movie is during the first half of the movie where it is just trying to be this generic action movie, he's very much playing the Arnie type that we all kind of know him for. And then as the movie goes on and the Predator gets introduced, it is interesting seeing Arnie scared and like not able to sort of take control of the situation. Because like there are genuine points in this movie where Arnie looks like he genuinely thinks that Kevin Peter Hall is about to kill him.
Yeah. And that's the thing, I think that's what makes this movie so effective, is like Arnie is actually quite good at conveying like oh shit. Like, he does that face a lot where he's like, it's a visual podcast, but I'm sure sorry, it's not a visual podcast, it's an audio podcast, but I'm sure the listeners they know what face I make.
We all know the face. It's
oh shit.
I mean, we're both doing the face right now. No one can see it apart from us.
Oh shit, listeners. It's an audio medium. I noticed you haven't been doing the Arnie voice as much as I have.
I've not. I think it's because I'm very self-conscious that it might not be as good as yours.
I mean, mine isn't good.
Well, that shows you how much confidence I have in my Arnie voice.
Just give me a quick blast of, get to the chopper!
Get to the chopper!
See, that's not too bad, that's alright.
That came out alright, actually. I might start pepper it on a little bit more. I've given you like head. I'll give you shaft later.
Oh, good lord.
Are we doing them out of 10? Are we going to rate the characters out of 10?
Yeah, fuck it. Let's rate the characters.
Let's just do it.
So,
cool.
Okay, sure. Dutch, 10 out of 10, obviously.
Yeah, he's a 10 out of 10. It's one of Arnie's best performances. He's a great character, great leader, knows how to fuck shit up when he needs to fuck shit up. Big love.
Yeah, and also, like, he's got a moral code. As
Yeah.
much as he loves to kill, he will only do it in certain sections. He doesn't want his team to be in any danger. When it turns out that Dylan has not told them the whole truth, he's like, fuck you, asshole. It's pretty good. Yeah, so I'm going to give Dutch 10 out of 10. I also want to shout out that, like, as the movie goes on, when we get into that final act of the movie, where it pretty much is just silent, it's just Arnold versus Predator. Whoever wins, we lose. And he's like covering himself in mud and all that shit. Like, where he goes full primal, and there's that shot where he's like covered in fucking mud with the torch, and he's like, into the sky.
Oh, I love that so much.
That is cinema. That is fucking cinema.
It's so great. Yeah, he does the roar, and then he chucks the torch down and lights the fire. It's so good. I love this movie.
Because he's like calling out the Predator. He's like, "Let's go, bitch!"
And it's great. Oh, it's so good. It gets me pumped every fucking time. I'm like, Dutch, fuck that Predator up. And then he kind of does, but gets his ass kicked. Anyway, Dutch, 10 out of 10. We love him.
Yeah, 10 out of 10. So let's move on to Carl Weathers as Al Dillon.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Dillon? What do you think of him?
Well, my first thought is Carl Weathers is fucking ripped in this movie.
He is.
He is like, they have the bit at the start where they have the muscle off, and obviously he's not as humongous as Arnold. But there's bits in this movie where Carl Weathers is running around with no shirt on, and like, fuck me, that guy's built. But anywho, that aside.
Sorry, we're just gushing over Carl Weathers.
Just saying, I don't think of him as a particularly ripped dude, but I guess he was.
No, because do you know the only other thing that I think of him from is Happy Gilmore.
Right, yeah.
Because he plays Chubbs in that.
See, I always think of him in fucking Arrested Development.
Ah, yes, of course.
He's like the down and out acting coach. Yeah. It's fucking. It's so. Just a side note. It's one of the best running jokes in the series where Carl Weathers is always trying to get free food wherever he goes.
Yeah.
Whoa! There's still plenty of meat on that bone. Now you take this home, throw it in a pot, add some broth, a potato. Baby, you got a stew going.
But Dylan, I like Dylan. I like Dylan, but also, he's dishonest to Dutch, and we love Dutch, so I'm going to have to knock Dylan down.
Yeah, I'm going to say Dylan is kind of a snake, because we should say he's a CIA operative, former, I guess, Marine or whatever, because they say that he was in Nam with Dutch.
Yes.
But he's now a CIA operative. But yeah, it turns out he's a bit of a snake, because he says to them, like, oh, they're going on one mission, but it turns out they're going on another mission. These guys aren't guerrillas who they just wiped out, or they kind of are, but they're not Central American, right? That's one thing that comes up. What is the deal with this? I can't even remember. This.
I think it's because all this stuff is so secondary to man fights alien. Like,
yeah, it kind of gets swept away. But just reading the plot on the podcast as we do. Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, right. Let's try this again. But like I watched the film yesterday. Yeah, because it turns out it's not just a routine operation that Dylan's sending them on. They're actually Soviet agents that are in this Central American.
Yeah, so this is actually like an intel gathering mission as well as a rescue mission.
Yeah, and it turns out there's like a Soviet-backed invasion of the US that's about to happen, And that's just a fucking wild detail of this movie.
That never gets brought up again because the Predator shows up and just fucking kills everybody.
Yeah, did the invasion happen?
We'll never know. Because
Is America okay?
Yeah, because they don't talk about that in Predator 2. Like,
No, they don't.
Maybe that explains why New York is so fucked. Is it? No, it's not New York in Predator 2, is it? It's Los Angeles, isn't it?
I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen it. Let's say it's Los Angeles for the sake of it. Just so that you.
We'll just say it is. Yeah. All right, maybe we should do that again.
No. We're keeping it. Keep it in double it. Yeah. So Dylan gets a bit of a redemption arc because he does go to face the Predator. He gets fucking murderized.
I mean, like anybody apart from Dutch that tries to fight the Predator just gets fucked up.
Yeah, he gets his arm lasered off.
He does, and it's cool as shit as well.
Yeah, because it's like still like he's clutching the trigger of his machine gun, and it's still firing as the arm hits the ground. That's fucking buck wild. But yeah, Dylan. Yeah, he's a bit of a snake, but he turns it around at the end. You know, he tries to save everyone, fails as most of them do, but buys them some time as he's fending off the Predator. So I'm going to give him. I'm going to give him a 6.5.
Yeah, I was thinking 6. 6 sounds about right. Yeah, he does redeem himself, but he is a snake, so I can't really. And it's Carl Weathers. I do love Carl Weathers. Yeah, 6. 6 it is.
Okay. Let's move on to the one female character of this movie.
True.
Who is Ana Gonzalez, a
Yes.
female insurgent, according to my notes.
She's not really much of a character. Her main purpose of this movie is to give the one bit of exposition we get about the creature.
Yeah, because the insurgents have seen the creature before. So am I to understand that these there are gorillas in the jungle, but the thing that Dylan was not telling them the whole truth about was like this is a whole operation, a whole fucking Soviet situation. It's not just like some rebels hiding out in the trees.
It's implied, yeah.
Because she is Latin American, or she is Central American.
Yes, yeah. She is one of the insurgents, yeah.
Right. But they're not necessarily. I don't really know what's going on with this element of the plot. I'm sure Abdul in the comments will tell us.
Yes.
But anyway, the point is this. They kind of take her hostage to begin with, but then she turns out to be the only one who knows anything about the Predator. She kind of gives you the exposition about what she's seen it do. Because obviously they stumble across the Green Berets they're looking for, and they've been skinned alive. Which is crazy.
Admittedly, is probably the reason why central cast of characters do murder the living shit out of all of the insurgents, because they see what they've done to those Green Berets, but obviously we then later find out that it wasn't them.
It was actually the Predator, yes.
Yeah, the Predator did that.
Yes. There's not really much more to say about Anna. I mean, she's there. She tries to pick up a machine gun to fight the Predator at one point, and Arnold's like, no, that is a man's job. He doesn't say that, but it's...
Yeah, and other than that, like, her presence does help us to understand a little bit more about the Predator, because it never attacks her because she's always unarmed.
Yes.
Like, that's a little detail about her.
Which, that is the real reason Dutch knocks the gun out of her hand.
Yeah, because he knows that if she's unarmed, it won't harm her, because the Predator, despite being a killing machine, is an honourable killing machine.
Yeah. He has rules. He certainly has rules.
Anna, I'm going to go a 5 out of 10, just because other than that one little bit of exposition, she doesn't really have much of a purpose in this movie. She does survive, though.
I can't give her much higher than a 5 just because she's kind of a non-entity in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, she survives at least, so she's got that over a lot of the other characters.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, 5 it is.
So, we move on. I'm going down the cast list on Wikipedia. That's the order.
Yeah, I'm staring at it as well, because this podcast is sponsored by Wikipedia.
Yeah, as if they've got any money.
I know, they're always fucking begging me for it.
So, yes, we next move on to Bill Duke as Sergeant Mac Elliott.
I'm just going to say it right now. 10 out of 10. Love this character.
10 out of 10. Total nutcase.
Absolute nut job.
We are introduced to him when we get the chopper riding into to the jungle. He is shaving himself while he's already got war paint on, which is an interesting choice. And we actually see him with his little Bic razor a few times before he prepares. I guess that's how he prepares to kill.
Yeah, it's very ritualistic, isn't it? And it's even made even better because the characters are always just so sweaty that he's just shaving with his own sweat. No foam or anything. Just sweat.
Yeah. And he's kind of a nutcase, that's the thing.
But he's definitely traumatized from Nam. Like, that's the impression that I'm getting. Because
he fucking, before it all kicks off, he fucking threatens to kill Carl Weathers for tripping over a couple of times. He's like, if you give away our position one more time, I'll kill you. And it's like, I'm just doing, that's my Bill Duke impression. It's not very good.
I mean, mine's, I got to have me some fun. I got to have me some fun.
When he starts breaking down,
so great.
We're introducing him as a nutcase. Apparently, Blaine is his best friend.
Which they just mention, like, once.
they mention, like, we were in Nam together, and then when Blaine dies, Mac completely loses his shit and is like, he was my best friend. I'm going to kill the Predator.
But that is one of my favourite scenes of the movie after Blaine has died, where it's just nighttime and Mac's just sitting there, shaving, talking to himself.
Yeah, I should have written down what he was saying, but he says some kind of weird shit about, like, oh, the night sky, we used to look up at it together. And it's like, the fuck are you talking about, man?
Like, yeah, it's like, were they just murdering people together, or were they gay, or was it both? Like,
did they have
any of these things?
Did they have the gay condition?
Your friend has the gay condition.
So, Mac, yeah, we've got to say, I think this is one of the stronger performances in the movie.
Oh yeah, he's a fruitcake, man. He's insane.
He goes from like mumbling psychopath to screaming psychopath.
And his death is glorious as well.
Oh yeah, he gets a real gory headshot when the
Predator
finds
it's great.
Because he almost gets the drop on the Predator as well. Like he kind of, until Dutch, he's the guy who gets closest anyway.
Yeah, because he's the one who, after Blaine gets killed because the Predator shoots a couple of holes through Blaine using his plasma cannon, he basically gets them all to start shooting at the trees, and inadvertently, even though obviously, well, I say inadvertently, he was intending to, but he's the first one to actually injure the Predator.
Mm.
But also, yes, you're right, he does spot the Predator in the trees.
But that also leads to the brilliant line of, if it bleeds, we can kill it.
It does, yes, which is...
a famous line.
There's so many great lines in this movie as well. So many great lines.
I mean, most of this podcast has been us doing Predator quotes.
That's very true. Big fan of I ain't got time to bleed.
Yes, well, we'll get into that. Well, right, hang on. So we'll do Mac. That's Mac. What are we saying?
10 out of 10. Easy 10 out of 10. He's great.
I'm going to say 10 out of 10 because also I love the bit where after he snaps after Blaine's death, he's running through the jungle going, I'm going to have me some fun. I'm going to have me some fun.
He's just gone insane, and it's amazing. Every time I watch this movie, I live for that. I love it so much.
But also, we see his arc with Carl Weathers where he goes from being like, if you trip over one more time, I'll kill you and leave you for dead. Because where he's like, I don't care who you are out there in the world. But also, but we see he has an arc where he comes to respect Carl Weathers because Carl Weathers comes with him to track the Predator.
It's very true, yes.
And he's like, it seems you were a true man all along because you too are ready to face death at the hands of an alien.
And then they both fucking die.
They both die spectacularly, yes.
Yeah, within like a good 30 seconds of one another as well. Like, it's very quick.
Yeah, the Predator don't fuck around. Like,
no, it really doesn't.
Later installments of this franchise has more sadistic Predators. But this one's kind of boom, headshot, and then he rolls on. Like, that's kind of his vibe. This Predator is very much like he plants and snipes. That's his vibe.
This is a very experienced Predator, I feel.
Well, that's what you want. Because later installments... I'm doing the classic Kino Inferno thing. Later installments make it clear that this Predator is actually inexperienced.
Oh, really? I mean, you wouldn't get that vibe. He is efficient as fuck.
Yeah. So, like, I think this is one of the Predators... I mean, whether you consider it canon, this film or not, is up to you. But this is supposed to be one of the Predators who's, like, one of the teenagers going through a rite of passage, manhood hunting thing. Because that's just their way of excusing why, like, later Predators use hand-to-hand combat more, as they go, like, they're more experienced, so they're like...
I mean, that does make sense, yeah.
But, anywho, so we're giving Mac 10 out of 10. Let's
Absolutely.
roll on to Jesse Ventura, another future governor, as Blaine Cooper.
I like Blaine. He doesn't really get enough screen time, I think, though. That's kind of the biggest downside.
He's kind of... he's killed off quite quickly. but he has some fucking excellent lines. Like in the start, in the chopper before they get deployed, obviously he has the great line where he's chewing tobacco. And he goes, this stuff will make you a goddamn sexual Tyrannosaurus.
Yeah, I think he gets the best lines of the movie.
Yeah, and obviously he gets I ain't got time to bleed.
Yeah. And he also has the great ongoing bit with Hawkins, Shane Black's character, where Hawkins is,
we'll get to Hawkins' lines when we cover Hawkins, because I've got some thoughts about that.
Yeah. I've just realised I got that completely around my neck. It's not Hawkins that... Hawkins doesn't have the bit with Blaine.
Yeah, it's with the other guy,
Yeah. I'm very tired from doing this podcast,
Don't worry.
But Blaine, I think... I'll give him like a 7, I think. He's not got enough screen time, but whenever he is on
he has
screen,
some great lines. I'm going to give him an 8, because he has some great quotes. He dies early on, but he has the minigun moment.
He does.
And he also... is played by Jesse Ventura, a real life insane person.
That's very true.
you kind of have to give him props for that.
And also his character is responsible for Mac running around the forest screaming, "I'm gonna have me some fun." Without his character dying, that wouldn't happen. So.
Yeah, well, he's Mac's love interest.
That's very true. They are definitely gay.
Question mark. I mean, he claims that his chewing tobacco makes him a sexual Tyrannosaurus, and I don't see any women on that chopper.
That's very true, and Mac is very upset when he dies.
I know. I'm gonna have me some fun.
Yeah, he was getting the good dick all along.
He was getting Blaine's good dick. Moving swiftly on. Why don't we go to Shane Black as Rick Hawkins, radio operator?
His character is interesting.
So we should say, for the benefit of people who aren't aware, Shane Black, actor in this, but goes on to be one of the most highest paid screenwriters in Hollywood history for a good few years. He wrote the Lethal Weapon movies, all sorts of other shit.
He also then went on to direct quite a few movies. The one that most people will probably know, Iron Man 3, he directed.
But also Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Yes. Was
the
Long
Nice
Kiss Goodnight him
Guys.
as well?
No, he wrote that. I don't think he directed
Right, okay, yeah.
Because he pulled in a record-breaking fee for that one.
Right, okay. And also, he then later went on to direct The Predator.
Yes, the
which
famously
I
shit
haven't
film.
actually seen, but I've heard is absolute arse.
I've not seen it either. Maybe we'll cover it one day.
Maybe we should, because I've heard it is
He also
bad.
wrote Last Action Hero.
Yes, he did, yeah. So his character in this movie, he's not in it much, but his entire thing is that he just keeps trying to get Billy, who we do need to talk about.
Oh yes, we'll get into that.
He keeps trying to make Billy laugh by telling him dirty jokes, and that's kind of his entire character.
Yes. He tells some pussy jokes.
Some very crass pussy jokes.
Yeah, what was the first one? Because I know the one that makes Billy laugh is he goes, I was going down on my girlfriend the other night, and I said, "You got a pretty big pussy, you got a pretty big pussy." And she says, "Why did you say it twice?" And I said, "I didn't." Then he explains the joke saying, "You see, it's so big there's an echo," which is the one that makes Billy laugh. Because he does that great. Because Billy does that great fucking laugh where he's like, "Ha ha 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 ha."
The most powerful laugh.
But yeah, Shane Black, he doesn't make it through the end of the movie.
No, he dies pretty early on.
Pretty early doors, the comic relief gets whacked. Yeah, I think he's pretty funny. I'm going to give him a 7 because he doesn't make much of an impression, but it is Shane Black, which is fun, and he says some pussy jokes. So
he does, yeah, and you can't massively go wrong with that, I think. And also, he does lead to Billy doing the laugh.
The crazy laugh, yeah.
The crazy laugh.
Which, by the way, the Predator then samples at the end.
Yes, which is also great. Because everything in this movie is great.
It's crazy move from the Predator to... Because presumably... I presume that Predators don't naturally laugh. But then at the end, when Arnie thinks the Predator's down for the count, the Predator goes for the self-destruct as a last-ditch effort, and he fucking laughs in Arnie's face using Billy's laugh. So he fucking sampled that shit. He's mixing it up, he's scratching it.
It's so good.
It's great. It's fucking wild. That is. But yes, we'll move on to Billy, shall we?
Yes, Billy, who is like the fucking MVP. Like, he's the one that knows something's up. Yes. He immediately just, he senses the Predator.
He's a Native American tracker, so he knows.
Yeah, he knows something's afoot. And, to my mind, he gets the best death of this movie, even though it's off-screen.
Yes.
Because
Can I tell you a few things about the guy who plays Billy?
Sonny Landham, yes, you can.
Sally.
Sally.
Let me try that again. Sonny Landham. He also ran for governor of the United States.
What is going on in this fucking cast?
Yeah, apparently this is the only movie that contains two actors who would go on to be governors of the United States. So that's obviously Arnold himself, governor of California. Jesse Ventura was the governor of some god unknown place. Minnesota or something like that. Anyway, the point is this. Landham ran in the Republican Party for the post of governor of Kentucky. It says here, I can't remember where I got these notes from, but it says here, hoping to repeat the success of his Predator castmates, which I think might be a bit of conjecture on the writer's part. But yeah, so
good.
But anyway, the point is this. He was unsuccessful in gaining the party's nomination because he's a dangerously insane lunatic.
Like everybody else in this film, I guess.
Yes, and it should be said, he went on a show called The Weekly Filibuster and advocated for the genocide, this is a Native American saying this, advocated for the genocide of the Arab race.
What? No. Billy!
This is absolutely true.
Billy!
He was stark raving mad when they made Predator as well, because do you know something? They had to hire a bodyguard for him to keep him from hurting anyone else.
Right, I did hear about this. I heard he was a live wire. I did not know he was genocidal.
He's an absolute head case. The Libertarian Party kicked him out because he was too insane. He was making them look bad.
Fucking hell, I did not know any of that. That's incredible. I mean, I'm still giving Billy a 10, but...
I'm giving Billy a 10 because I'm worried what he'll do if I don't. But no, the character in the movie, yeah, he's kind of like... It is a little bit stereotypical. He's the Native American tracker. He can smell trouble on the breeze.
Yeah.
But, you know, it just about works. They don't make too much of it that it becomes like, oh, Jesus. But yeah, he does have that line with, we're all gonna die.
Yeah, and I love his final moment where he stays on the log bridge and...
yeah, because he goes for, like, the warrior's honourable duel with the Predator.
Yeah, and I think it's a great bit of direction on McTiernan's part there that we don't see Billy die. We just hear him scream in the distance because, you know, he gets the honourable death because he tried to actually face the Predator down. We do then get that incredibly graphic follow-up where we see the Predator removing his spine and his skull.
Yes.
Which is cool as fuck, because I like the fact that the Predator keeps his trophies. And it's even funnier that he keeps the fucking skull of the dude. I think is it Mac's skull? It must be Mac's skull.
It's got like the laser blast.
Yeah, it's got like a hole in it. And it's like, I get that you keep your trophies, mate. And like, but you do see that the Predator like polishes them and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, he doesn't take that much pride in it, but he's just got the one with the giant fucking hole in it.
So yeah, I mean, this is something actually. It's interesting you bring up the fact that you don't see Billy's death. There's also a part where I forget whose corpse they're looking at, but you don't see the corpse at all. And it's like when they first start to realise like the Predator's hunting them, there's a bit where they see a mangled corpse and you don't see the corpse in the scene. They're just like looking at it and reacting.
I think it might just be one of the other members because
I think it's one of the Green Berets. Yeah, because I think Jesse Ventura's in that scene. So I think it's just one of the Green Berets. But it's a really great thing to do because like although there is graphic violence in the rest of the movie, I like that there's a couple of times where they restrain it and they kind of let you build the suspense to like, Jesus, what's happened to these guys? You know? Yeah,
because again, I think that's one thing that this movie has going for it is it's got a really good atmosphere, which says a lot when the majority of the movie takes place in daylight as well. Like the actual like rainforest itself is a really like imposing environment, and you can tell that the actors, because I've read about this as well, the actors were having a fucking awful time making this.
Oh, yeah.
They were suffering. Apparently, a lot of them lost a shitload of weight. Even though they were working out every day to sort of maintain their physiques, they all lost so much weight doing this movie.
Yeah, and like, you know, Sonny Landham was just always waiting in the shadows.
None of them, they couldn't sleep. Sonny Landham was nearby.
I sleep with one eye open! Yeah, I mean... I think we've kind of moved through all the main characters there, but like...
Yeah, there is one or two other people in the crew, but they're such, like, non-entities that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I mean, we've got, I mean, we've talked about the Predator. I think, I guess, to kind of sum up, I kind of agree with you, like, what this film has going for it is just a really great atmosphere. It's shot really well. It's directed really well. It has a great score by Alan Silvestri as well.
Yeah, the score is great. It really is.
It's so cool because it's just like, it has exactly the right atmosphere to kind of get you into this like jungle madness. I think it's really cool. I mean, I will say it's not a fucking deep movie in any way.
No, not at all. I mean, fundamentally, it's almost like it starts off as Die Hard and then it just becomes a fucking slasher movie, essentially.
Yeah, and like it's, there's a little bit of like Vietnam commentary in there, I suppose. But to kind of
I don't think the film is. I feel like it brushes on those ideas, but that's not the film's chief concern. It's first and foremost like an action horror movie.
But there's definitely something going on with like, the Predator's over reliance on tech becomes its downfall. Dutch kind of is able to defeat it by going back to the primitive ways. So there's a slight echo of like America going into Vietnam and being kind of over-prepared and under-prepared at the same time.
I'd say it dips its toe as far into that as, say, what Aliens also does.
Yeah.
Aliens
it's got that
Nam imagery about it.
Yeah. It's got that same vibe where it's like it's not necessarily addressing it directly, but like viewers at the time would definitely have had that mentality. It's kind of like how you can't read a fucking review of Dune without people being like, "This is about the war in the Middle East."
Yeah.
Whereas, like, inevitably it's going to be, there's shades of that, even if it's not addressing it directly. Although Dune kind of is addressing it directly, obviously, but that's just.
They make outright references to Nam, and Mac is clearly suffering from PTSD. So.
Yeah, and it's in the jungle, so
But no, I mean,
and they do have the scene in the chopper. They do have like fucking Long Tall Sally playing, so it's like
that bit's on the nose.
It is very like every Vietnam film you've ever seen where the choppers are going in. I mean, frankly, we should count ourselves lucky that they didn't use Creedence Clearwater Revival.
That's true, actually. Which, I mean, that may have been the one thing you could improve in this movie. You could have used Creedence.
You could have used CCR, yeah.
You could have, because there's not a situation that cannot be improved with the inclusion of CCR. So.
All right. So I think we've said all that needs to be said about Predator. We've mostly just been screaming and quoting the film.
Everybody has seen Predator, so everyone just knows how good it is, and I just wanted to highlight it on this show because I love this movie. It really kind of appeals to my love of 80s action movies. It also appeals to my love of horror movies. The Predator's just cool as shit. To my mind, it is the best Predator movie.
Yeah, I don't think that's contested.
No. But I just think it's a solid movie, and I do really want to just put a finer point on the fact that so few films can actually boast of blending genres together as well as Predator does, because it succeeds at being an action movie, it succeeds at being a horror movie, it succeeds at being a science fiction movie simultaneously. I think maybe the only other film I can think of that does that is Aliens.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
But also, like, none of those elements ever feel like they're a disservice to the other one. The actual progression from action movie to horror movie is completely seamless. It feels natural. The Predator is built up brilliantly throughout. Like, we're kept in the dark as to what it looks like for so long.
That's the thing. They really hold off on the look. Even though it's an iconic creature, like, you really don't see the thing in full until, like, the final act. Like, you see, obviously, the famous heat vision stuff, which has been ripped off countless times, where you're seeing from the Predator's point of view. And that's fucking great. Like, that's so effective every time. And also you see, like, the outline of his, not quite invisibility, his, like, camouflage.
Yeah. One of my favourite shots in the movie is the first indication you get of it being something otherworldly is when you, through the heat vision, you see it pick up the dead scorpion. And you see its hand, and you can see that it's not a human hand.
It's got the clawed hand.
Yeah, like, that's really cool. I love the shot where it rises up out of the water, where Arnie covers himself in the mud and stuff, and I love that sequence as well, because, like, Arnie looks like he probably had Sonny Landham just stood off camera staring at him. Like,
if the camera had moved an inch to the left, Sonny would also be there covered in mud going, "I'm watching you, bastard."
And yeah, I love the whole finale of the movie where the Predator takes off its mask, because that first shot where it takes its mask off and you see the mandibles and stuff, it's like...
Yeah, it's fucking cool.
And, like,
it still looks great now, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like it's one of those things where even though we've had Predator sequels, the design of the Predator has always been good.
Yeah, it's always been consistent. Yeah.
They've always just built on it as well, but the original is probably still my favourite. of all the Predator designs. I think because it's probably the most simplistic. I think some of the later ones are quite cool, but this one I just think it's...
They like to add gizmos and gadgets to the Predator armor and stuff.
Yeah, sometimes to its detriment, I think. I mean, you know, the arm cannon in this movie is fucking awesome, but they go a bit overboard with that in some of the later ones, and like
I just like that it looks like a thing, like it looks like a real... I was going to say like a real person, but like it's not one of these aliens that like you see a lot in movies now where they either look so generic or they've just got a million teeth, and it's just like, what is this creature even doing? But like you look at the Predator and you see like the culture that this thing comes from. You can see like they have technology, but they're primal and they're tribal, and they like to hunt, and like they hunt for sport and for like the honor of it as much as for food. And like you can tell so much, like, and as I think we've said this, like there's not a lot of exposition in this movie about like the nature of the Predator. There's no point where anyone is like, this is what the creature is. They don't find a ship or anything like that. They speculate and they make, you know, and they find things out along the way where they go, oh, he's a hunter, or like he won't attack an unarmed person. He can't see you with his helmet on if you blend in with your surroundings temperature wise.
Yeah, Anna does allude to the fact that it only ever appears when it's hot. And she says it has to be really hot. That's the only time it ever appears. So that kind of gives you an indication as to its abilities and like the kind of climates that it likes.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing, like they never really get into like how it got here, how long it's been here. We know it's been here for a little while because it's been picking off gorillas as well. But yeah, and I like that sense of mystery. But I also like the sense that the Predator is like not... Like the alien in Alien is like just complete unstoppable badass. The like Ripley only escapes by the skin of her teeth by ejecting it out of the ship. Yeah. But I like the fact that in Predator, it kind of has that element of like it's not just bestial. He is like a warrior, and you see him fuck up a couple of times.
Yeah,
like you see his suit start to malfunction. You see like when he's fighting Dutch, he's like, "Fuck, he's using mud. What the fuck do I do?" And that's when he takes his helmet off. And you see like bits, and you see like him stitching up his wounds and stuff at one point.
Yeah, which I like that a lot because that's one of the first glimpses you see of it fully, and you kind of hear the roar of it and stuff. You say the whole bit where he samples Billy's laugh at the end is just great.
Yeah.
I also just I like its blood as well. I like this I like the actual story behind the blood, that it's just it's
it's like KY jelly, isn't it?
It's KY jelly and the fluid from glow sticks, which is just great. Like.
Which is another thing it has in common with the alien, by the way, because the alien's drool is KY jelly.
Yeah, and bright green blood as well.
Stan Winston had a lot of KY jelly lying around.
Your friend has the gay condition.
Well, I think we've probably said all that we want to say about Predator. I mean, I could talk endlessly about how much I love Predator, but I feel like we've probably...
I mean, let's... Kino or Inferno?
I mean, do I even need to answer? Yes, I do. Kino, all day, every day.
That's interesting because I'm going to put it in the Inferno.
And I will grasp it from the Inferno and I will set fucking Sonny Landham on you.
I'm not, I wouldn't put this movie in the Inferno. Like, I'm going to say, you know, this is not a movie where you're going to be like, I felt human feelings while watching it. But, like, it is a movie.
Pumped.
Yeah, you're going to be fucking pumped by the end of this movie. Because it starts off with, like, all the dudes fucking on the mission, making quips, getting ready. They all get killed off by the Predator, and then it becomes Arnie versus alien menace. Mano a mano, wrestling in the mud. And if you can't do better than that in terms of just getting pumped. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a good movie. It might just be the
perfect pump movie.
Just pumping one out to Predator.
Pumping. Constantly.
Pumping makes me feel good.
Pumping does make me feel good. Just give me movies about giant muscly men fighting walking vagina monsters and I am a happy, pumped up boy.
So anyway, we're going to talk about another film today as well.
I can't, I'm all pumped out.
Yes, we're going to move on to Terminator 2, Judgment Day. I wonder if that'll be Kino or Inferno.
Keep it under 65. We don't want to be pulled over.
Affirmative.
No. You gotta listen to the way people talk. You don't say affirmative or some shit like that. You say, no problemo. And if someone comes up to you with an attitude, you say, eat me. And if you want to shine them on, it's hasta la vista, baby.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Yeah, or later, dickwad. And if someone gets upset, you say chill out. Or you could do combinations.
Chill out, dickwad.
That's great, see, you're getting it.
No problemo.
Terminator 2 is the 1991 sequel to Terminator, both directed by James Cameron. It tells the tale of 10-year-old John Connor, the future saviour of mankind, who in a few decades from 1991 will lead the human resistance against evil computer system Skynet as it seeks to wipe us out. For now, though, he's just a regular shitty kid who one day finds himself pursued by a liquid metal cyborg from the future. But don't worry too much, listeners. His future self has sent back an Arnold Schwarzenegger-shaped Terminator to protect him. Along the way, they spring his mentally ill mother from the institution she's held captive in, and after some bickering and an attempted home invasion, they rally together and decide to take the fight to the diabolical machines. It's the best movie ever. Do not at me.
You know, when you really break it down, there is a lot going on in this movie.
Oh, so much happens.
To the point where when I was watching it last night, I was just like, immediately my brain was just like, so that's the good Terminator, that's the bad Terminator, let's fucking rock and roll. But when you just put it to me like that, I was like, God, if you hadn't seen the first movie, or any of the other movies, this would be a fever dream.
I mean, it kind of, like, the first one is kind of a fever dream anyway. An 80s neon fever dream. And this one, it's definitely... it features a few fever dreams. We get a lot of Sarah Connor's dreams of burning fucking playgrounds.
Harrowing.
Well, that's the opening credits. The opening credits of this movie are set over fucking an inferno of flames engulfing untold amounts of playgrounds. With the
I love the opening to this movie. It's so atmospheric. I can't do anything without the Terminator theme just attacking me. It's very, I immediately got to say, like, the score of this movie is great because it's so oppressive. It sounds exactly like it needs to sound. It sounds like machines are gonna get you and they're gonna fucking ruin you. That's what it sounds like. Yeah,
and this movie, fucking rules.
It's pretty great.
That's my take on this movie.
Pretty great.
It fucking rules. So, I mean, I don't know how much we need to go through the plot of this movie. I assume.
And you did just give us a very good overview of the events that occur.
Yeah. I mean, there's some more ins and outs. There's different cuts and stuff that we can get into. But for now, I just kind of want to say, every time I see this movie, I'm just struck by how much it fucking rules. And, like, that is not a deep critical thought, really. But, you know, it's just one of those films where, like, the cinematography is excellent. I mean, we both watched the UHD version last night on Amazon. So we should say, listeners, if you are wondering, we actually watched the theatrical cut last night because I confused a few things. And we were going to watch the director's cut. We ended up watching the theatrical cut. Don't worry about it. It's fine. We've both seen the director's cut.
So I'm not as well versed in this movie as you are, because I know that you would sacrifice your firstborn for this film. And you know, that's not to tip the hat too early there, but...
Will it be Kino? Will it be...
are we going to throw it into the steel and give it a little thumbs up?
Oh, don't! Okay, this is one thing. We can't make fun of the ending because it's too raw. It's too soon. I mean, I've seen this movie... I've been watching this movie for over 20 years. Well, maybe not. Well, yeah.
You did send me a text message earlier, which made me lose my shit at work. Okay? I'm going to find it. So, vamp for me for a second. Do me some Terminator-based vamping.
Okay, so, yeah. There are 3 cuts of this movie that currently exist because, just to be annoying. There's the theatrical cut, which is the one we watched last night. There is a director's cut, quote-unquote, which was previously known as the ultimate cut. This is the version that actually plays on TV more often than not, is the weird thing. Or at least it is in the UK. So that has a few additional scenes, which we'll talk about. I wonder if it's just a thing of, like, they like to use
it's likely a case of filling out the time, because when they put out breaks in it, because if you say it's the extended cut, they show a lot more.
Yeah, because I was surprised, actually, because weirdly, this was on ITV. Yeah, I just happened across it, and I was like, oh, this is the extended cut, that's weird. The Ultimate Cut. And there is the 2015 Extended Cut, which is a Blu-ray exclusive and has the shit ending and a bit more added in. I did a little research into this because we were very confused by the 3 different cuts. I mean, it's not a Blade Runner situation where you're going to get drastically different movies, but the Extended Cut does have a different ending where instead of the final like narration monologue from Sarah Connor as the road kind of trundles by the camera, we cut to 1997. Judgment Day hasn't happened. John Connor is a senator, and Sarah Connor is old. And the timeline of this movie is very odd because that they say specifically that Judgment Day is in 1997, right? So the fact that John is like a senator at that point, he can't be 10 in 1991.
Yeah,
anyway,
that ending is
that's another story.
Stupid. It's very stupid.
That's another story for another day. That ending is bad, it's shit, and it should never have been filmed. Cameron was right to take it out. But that's the ending of the Extended Cut. God knows why, because I've never met a Terminator fan who's like, do you know what I really think should have stayed in the movie? The happy ending where John has kids and Sarah sits on a bench. I've never met anyone who's that's there.
I mean, unless they're just like super into Linda Hamilton as an old woman, then I don't see any reason why anybody would.
No.
But
so yes, you were going to incriminate.
I'm going to incriminate you. Yes, I mean you vamped very well there. You got a lot of stuff established there that we're going to talk about later. So kudos to you for that. No, you've not only summarised the plot, you've summarised the 3 different versions. You've done half the fucking work for me. So now it's time to embarrass you. You sent me this message, which
I mean, you say this like I'm not going to.
Well, no, you're not going to be embarrassed. But I thought this was hilarious and very funny and sweet.
Real men have feelings.
I mean, you do have feelings sometimes. And this is one of those instances, and I'm glad that I have a record of this because it's a nice little beautiful snapshot of you as a person. It just reads, and I quote, "Mate, I just started thinking about what to say about the end of Terminator 2 and had to stop because I'm in Sainsbury's for the... I'm assuming you meant Sainsbury's."
Yeah, it's a supermarket for our international.
It's kind of a bit more upmarket than Walmart.
Yeah, only a little.
Anyway, yeah, so, mate, I just started thinking about what to say about the end of Terminator 2 and had to stop because I'm at Sano's and tears were actually forming. LMAO.
I mean, I should say I was also listening to the soundtrack.
Of course you were.
So I was kind of, to get into the mood, I like to get into the mood before we do it.
Your friend has the gay condition.
So we've established that this movie makes Aiden tear up. So I feel like you should probably...
Yeah. Because it's the saddest film ever made. Or the ending is, anyway. The ending is the most tragic ending to a film. Full stop.
I don't know about that, man.
No, but, listen. Obviously, I'm not here being like, Terminator 2 is a fucking moving indie drama about...
Well, no, because it's entertaining for starters.
And it's like, look, this is a popcorn muncher. We've said this. I would go as far as to say that, Terminator 2 is kind of the popcorn movie taken to the peak of what a popcorn movie can be. I think there's a few kind of blockbusters that touch it or kind of just get there. But honestly, for my money, and this is my opinion, but, I don't think there's a better American blockbuster before or since. I think this is kind of the pinnacle of what I want a blockbuster movie to be, because it's got action, it's got humor, it's fun to watch, it's well shot, the effects are great. There's bombast. There's enough bombast, but it doesn't go over the top. That's something that's true. It's that's something that's key about this movie, I think, is that there is action bombast, and there is these big car chases, and there's all this carnage and everything, but it doesn't descend into what you have with a lot of movies where today, where there's just kind of indistinguishable action happening. You think of a Michael Bay movie or 90% of the Marvel movies where the action is just stuff happening, a CGI blur that you can't really make out what's going on. This movie is more skillfully directed than that, partially because when they're flipping trucks in this movie, they're flipping fucking trucks. There's no... I mean, there is CGI in this movie, there's groundbreaking CGI, and we'll get into that, but when they're doing vehicular carnage, they're doing it pretty much.
Yeah, that's one thing I have to say. I mean, you have established earlier that you have been watching this movie for a very large portion of your life, whereas I've never been too enamored with the Terminator movies. I really like the original because it kind of leans more into the sort of more horror-y, slasher-y stuff that I like. T2 was always one of those movies that I'd seen and liked, but I was never like completely enamored with, and I don't really understand why. But I watched it again last night, and I was so thoroughly impressed with it, just as a film.
Yeah.
Like, it's such an impressive
It fucking
film.
slaps. It slaps, mate. The CGI in this hasn't really dated that poorly, I don't think. And I think a lot of that is down to restraint. Like, because obviously the T-1000 is the effect that everyone was talking about when this movie came out, and like all the reviews mentioned how it's this incredible, like, thing to witness. Because, he goes from being Robert Patrick to being liquid to transforming into various things, and, blades at the end of his arms and stuff. And I think, honestly, it's one of those things like Jurassic Park where, because they knew the limitations of their era and what they were working with, they knew to not overuse the CGI, They weren't just reliant on it as they are now. Like, I mean, you and I know we're in an era where so much of filmmaking can be summed up by the phrase, we'll fix it in post, right? Whereas this is a time where that was starting to be more possible, but it's like you want to get as much in camera as possible. And I also think there's like neat little tricks they do. So like there's a bit where we'll go through the characters for this as well. I think that's the way to go in a minute. But when the T-1000 shows up at the mental hospital where Sarah Connor's being kept, and he does, there's the famous bit where he turns into liquid and like passes through the like prison bars. It's awesome. It's still awesome. And I think part of the way that, because even though the CGI is a teensy bit obvious nowadays, they add extra things, like when the pistol he's holding, like he gets it stuck on the other bone, has to turn his hand around and get it out, and that's just Robert Patrick doing that. And it's like adding those little physical details sell the non-physical effects so much better.
Yeah, and then, for example, I can think of that is after the really famous scene where Robert Patrick, the T-1000, should I say, is chasing after him in the car, and he turns his arms into like sort of almost like bladed crowbar kind of things, and he's hanging off
like
the back
hooks.
of the car,
Yeah.
which I couldn't help it because all I could think of was when The Simpsons parody it with Homer doing it with the golf clubs.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
all I could ever think of.
Yeah.
But there's like a really great bit of sound design where after they manage to shake him off the car, the actual sounds of his like metal blades clanging off of the road is so perfectly used. And even though those blades don't look entirely real, that sound and like the way that it's put across is perfect. It sounds like those blades are actually there. And it really kind of sells like I say, they sell the illusion of it.
Well, sound design is so important in these kind of movies anyway, but I think Terminator 1 and 2 are very reliant on sound design. I mean, you think of every time Arnie turns around and you get the little like machine whirring sounds, when his face is more exposed, like the metal face.
Yep.
Like they just sell it that little bit more by having that like when he's turning around.
I feel like it doesn't get brought up enough, but for me, probably my favourite sound effect in these original two movies is the sounds of the shotguns. Like, they have some real power to them. Even though the actual, like, the impact of them that you see, I feel like it should be more like something out of RoboCop than it is something in a Terminator movie. But no, the sound design of this movie is exceptional. I mean, the score is amazing as well. Like, that just kind of goes without saying.
That's it. I think this is what keeps me going back to this movie specifically. I mean, I love the first movie, and I was saying off mic, like, I very rarely watch one without watching the other one, if not on the same day, then like within the same week. So to me, like Terminator 1 and 2 are like almost one film at this point. But I think what keeps me going back to this film is that like it's just the sheer atmosphere of it. And it's everything that we were saying, there's this incredible score, obviously the effects and the action are cool and all this, but like you have this incredible like blue tinted cinematography.
Oh, it's just that sexy blue lighting.
Yeah, and like it looks so good in the
love.
4K as well. Like it holds up to this day. But even
that's like the cinematography is aged beautifully.
Yeah,
like even down to like the finer details. Like there's a part at the beginning of the movie where Arnie goes into the biker bar to get the levers, and then watching the UHD version of it last night, one of the bikers that he threatens, the one who gets thrown onto the stove, which is fucking brutal.
Yeah, that is mad.
Like that's some nasty shit. But there's a close up of that guy's face, and you can see the individual creases and wrinkles and lines on his face. It is amazing. I was like, that was the first time where I was like, my 4K TV has truly benefited a movie.
I mean, this is a movie. Yeah, it looks incredible in 4K. It really does. Like, considering it's a movie from 1991, and there's movies like made more recently than that, like in the 2000s, that look like ass compared to this.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that blue lighting is a big part of it. And it's the same, again, we've already mentioned it when talking about Predator, but James Cameron's other iconic masterpiece from the 80s, Aliens, uses that same blue light. And that movie, again, I've got the Blu-ray of Aliens, and that looks amazing.
So I think this movie, like, it's one of those things, you know, I don't really watch it for the plot anymore because I've seen it that many times, but, like, I just don't think there's anything that has this atmosphere. And it kind of has this, like, great tone to it where it is dark, it is kind of spiky in some ways. I just think this movie, even compared to the first one, has, like, a unique atmosphere to it, where the first one is, like, very much this kind of neon-soaked 80s kind of sci-fi slasher movie. But this is, like, there's something to this one where it has that darker edge to it, but it's also, like, you know, you can watch it as a fun movie to watch, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to quantify because I've seen this movie so many times and I just love it at this point. They're, like, breaking down the like, different elements. But I definitely think, like, the cinematography is such a large point of this, like, atmosphere, such a large part of this atmosphere, I should say. Like, for instance, like, before we go, I mean, we'll talk about the scene later, but there is the, you know, when they go to the steel mill, I mean, it's orange and blue, which is obviously still in vogue to this day.
I mean, it's more in vogue now than it ever was when this movie was made.
But you have this, like, churning, like, orange fucking steel lava just illuminating these, like, cold blue backgrounds, and it looks incredible. Like, it's like, it's crazy. The effect is so simple, it's just lighting, but it looks so fucking good.
Well, I can give you a great example of that. Watched this with my housemate last night, and he turned to me at one point and went, "When was this made?" And I said, 1991. And I was, like you say, you actually said this yourself to me, but I'm going to steal it and say it first. It's timeless. It looks timeless.
Yeah, it does. I mean, this is something that I think the first one definitely feels more retro, I think. Whereas this...
The first one's a bit more rough around the edges as well, I think, because I think the first one leans more into being, like you say, like a bit more of a horror movie, a bit more of a slasher movie. It's a little bit rougher, a little bit grainier in terms of the picture quality, whereas this is cold and very focused and very stylized and very sort of, like, razor sharp, this movie. Like, there is not a single misplaced shot in this movie. Everything is just so...
crisp.
Well crafted. Yeah, like, Cameron clearly poured everything into this movie.
I think let's go through the characters now. This seems to be a good way to move through these movies when we're not quite sure how to progress. So, who shall we start with?
Well, let's start with the Terminator himself, Arnie himself.
All right, yeah, the T-800 himself, the big guy, Arnold Schwarzenegger. So yes, the most famous twist in this movie. It's not really a twist anymore, but it was at the time. The Terminator from the first movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was the villain in the first movie, relentlessly pursuing Sarah Connor, is, in fact, the protector in this movie. And to me, this is kind of the quintessential Arnold performance. I mean, I love him in Predator, I love him in Commando and all those other movies, Conan the Barbarian. But to me, this movie specifically, not even Terminator 1, but this movie specifically is the movie where I'm like, this is why Arnie was a star. I mean, obviously he'd done stuff before this, but like, I think this is like like you said about like Cameron's like kind of crisp, nothing wasted, efficient. This is the most efficient delivery of Arnie's star power that's ever been put on screen. I would agree. Because he is playing an emotionless robot who is still somehow the most charismatic character on God's earth. I mean... You know, he absolutely knows what to do. He knows how to stand. He knows how to look. He knows how to deliver the humor. He knows how to deliver the cold Terminator that we want. And in the end, you know, it says something that he was able to take the character he played in the first one, a ruthless killing machine, and turn him into the robot father of a generation. You know?
No, I 100% agree with you. I think there's such a great degree of control to Arnie's performance in this as well. Like, it could so easily go off the deep end and be ridiculous or too campy or anything like that, and it just doesn't. Like, the emotions really sort of work in this movie, and I think the best thing is, like, all those sort of looks where John Connor is sort of to like explain things to him, or is just being an annoying little shit to him, and Arnie's just very much the audience, where it's just this sort of deadpan expression that he gives that is just so great.
Yeah. And there's so many great scenes with him in this. Like, obviously, you know, there's again like Predator. There's so many iconic lines in this movie. I mean, in the franchise in general. So obviously they kind of repeat the line that Kyle Reese gives Sarah Connor in the first movie is, "Come with me if you want to live."
It's done beautifully in this one.
It's done beautifully in here. I also want to highlight the "I'll be back" reference in this movie, because obviously in the first movie, "I'll be back" is a laugh line, right? And this is something I've actually seen Arnie talk about, where when they filmed so for context people who don't remember the first one, when he first delivers the "I'll be back," it's when he turns up at the police station where they're holding Sarah and Kyle, and he tries to just get through the front door, and obviously the clerk on the desk is like, "No, fuck off, who are you?" And he just kind of goes, "I'll be back," and then, you know, drives a car through the wall. So that's, but like the gag is like, you know, he's coming back and he's going to kill everyone. Like, it's a moment of dark humor. And actually, I saw Arnold, an interview with Arnold where he was saying like he didn't realize that line was a joke until he saw it with an audience. He was like, "Oh, it's just he's saying I'll be back," like, you know, it's whatever. But then when he saw it with an audience and they all like burst out laughing, he even says like, "That's when I realized this movie was like iconic as it was being watched." And I think they know what they're doing with this movie, where his "I'll be back," it's like him saying, "Don't worry, I'll be back." Like, they twist it around. He's kind of being like, "I'll come back for you," which is just like, there's such a skillfully done thing, because they don't make too much of it. It's not like in every subsequent Terminator film where they run the joke into the ground. It's really nicely done. It's like a twist on the context. That's the same with his.
I was literally just about to say that. Like, it's used in a completely different context and is especially effective within like Sarah Connor's character, because a large part of this movie is her trying to get past the trauma of the first movie, which you know, she doesn't handle well. Let's face it, she's basically feral. Yeah,
she has some issues.
Let's put it lightly.
But we'll get to Sarah.
She's one of my favourite aspects of this movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and like, we're going to shout out Linda Hamilton like nobody's business. But I do want to shout out Arnie, like, because this performance is fantastic, and I think it, you know, Cameron sells the ending, because so for people who don't know the.
It's all right, buddy. Get the Kleenex.
Ending. Oh, God, can I do this? The ending of this movie.
You held it together in Sainsbury's, you can hold it together now.
I mean, I'm joking, but it does get me every time. And it's one of those endings where there's not a dry eye in the fucking house. It's like, they deliver it so perfectly. It's so precision engineered throughout the rest of the movie, because you have Arnie, the T-800, kind of going... So we see a scene where after they rescue Sarah from the mental institution, she chews John out. She's like, "There's a stupid thing to do. You put yourself in harm's way. The T-1000 found you straight away. What the fuck are you thinking?" kind of thing. Like, you shouldn't have done that. And John's obviously crying because he's like, "Oh, you know, I wanted to help you out. Like, you're my mum. What the fuck?" And so we have the Terminator kind of being like, "Why do you cry?" You know, that's the first point when he sees John crying. He says like, "What is wrong with your eyes?" And then later on we have the Terminator brings it up again, where he's like, why do you cry? I don't understand it." And John kind of says like, you know, it's when you're not physically hurt, but you know, you're still hurting, kind of thing, is what he says. Then obviously the payoff line to that is when they're in the steel mill at the end, and you know, you've had this time to bond with the Terminator. We know that he's learning because he's around humans, and he's clearly come to care for John in as far as the Terminator can care for anyone. And we see that John's rubbing off on him as well, because we have, like, you know, the scenes where John is telling him, like, you know, if you want to blend in with him, like, he's trying to make the Terminator cool, which I always think is such a cute little thing. And, like, you know, John is the one who gives him the "Hasta la vista" line, which he uses to amuse himself more than anything. True, yes. When he shoots the T-1000. The "Hasta la vista, baby." Yeah, but anyway, the point is, so John's trying to make him cool, and, you know, as the movie goes along, we see that this is, like, the closest thing John's had to a real friend ever.
Aside from that kid with the mullet.
Yeah, but even that kid with the mullet, he doesn't get everything John's been through. Like, you get the sense that, like, although he is a fucking real one. We need to... Right, we'll get back to the T-800 and feelings in a minute. We need to shout out Mullet Kid, because he is a fucking real G. Because when the T-1000, unbeknown... Well, he doesn't notice the T-1000, he just sees a guy in a cop uniform. When he shows up, like, have you seen John Connor looking around the arcade? Ginger mullet guy, he's like, no, I haven't seen that kid in ages. Then he fucking runs to John. He's like, "You need to bust ass
clearly,
out."
Right. The impression that I got is that kid clearly has gone through a lot of the same sort of shit that John has. Not probably to the same degree as having feral Linda Hamilton as your mother, but that kid's got a mullet, so clearly there's neglect going on in that house.
Well, I'm just saying, Ginger Mullet Kid. He's a real
He's a G.
One. And if
it's
you're
a shame he's not in the movie more, but.
Yeah, I like that his last moment in the movie is him trying to bullshit the cop, being like, "Oh no, that kid you're looking for, he just went the other way." I mean, the T-1000's like,
Robert Patrick totals
like,
that fucking mullet kid. It's great.
He fucking bodies the mullet kid. It's so good. He just goes, yeet, and just fucking walks on. I mean, we'll get to Robert Patrick. But anyway, the Terminator. Yes. Yeah, I think he's really cool. I mean, like, we have all these scenes where, like, I think that what's really cool about the way they handle this character is it's not overdone. There's plenty of sci-fi movies with robots who learn human emotions that are just not, it's overdone, it's a little bit too obvious. You have this cliche of like, what is this human thing called love? Which is like kind of what you're getting at here. But I like the fact it's and like, I think if it wasn't delivered by Arnold Schwarzenegger, it might come across a bit moist. But because it's just him being, why do you cry? And it just comes across as like, it's just a question. It's just,
Well, yeah, it's like he
curious,
plays it
he
like
doesn't
a
understand.
machine. A lot of these other movies, they play it as machines that are trying to be human. He is a machine that is just trying to comprehend the information that has been given to him. And they do make a point of saying, doesn't it, the more that they are around humans, the more that they learn.
Yes.
Which basically says to me that the Terminators are essentially Furbies. Because that's what Furbies do.
Feed me.
Prove me wrong.
Feed me.
But yeah, and I think that's why the sort of emotional crux, which definitely has more of an effect on you than it does me. But I'm a cold-hearted
I don't believe
when it
that. I
comes
simply
to
don't
movies.
believe that. Like, this is the thing.
No, I think it's a perfectly emotionally resonant moment.
I think if you don't have a little something in your eye at the end of this movie, then you're a cold psychopath. That's my...
I mean, then call me a cold-blooded psychopath and throw me in with feral Linda Hamilton, because apparently there's something going wrong with me.
I think if you don't get a little bit like, oh God, then I don't know what you are. I don't know. You don't have emotions.
I mean, I guess I don't. But no, it definitely doesn't have the same effect on me that it does you, but I can completely see why that moment works, and like it's so brilliantly done, it's well performed, the thing is, it's earned. That's the main thing.
That's what I was getting at. They earn it. It's sprinkled in throughout the movie, and we see that like he is learning to be more human. Because we see that, John says to him early on, like, you can't just go around killing people, and he's like, why not? I love it. But then
it's just like, that's his sole purpose. Yeah. That's like, it's in his name.
But then, as the movie goes along, we see he does actually start to go out of his way not to kill people. Like the famous minigun moment in this movie where he just sprays the cop cars. He just destroys all their weapons and vehicles. And, there's no human casualties. It's kind of... It's so interesting because we'll get into Sarah Connor in a minute, but like the movie also does a lot with paralleling their arcs, I think, the Terminator and Sarah's.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think they totally earned that moment at the end. And yes, it could come across as a bit kind of moist with another director or with other actors, but like they know what they're doing. They hit it out of the park. And that fucking final, because so for people who don't know, they kill the T-1000 by shoving it into the steel mill, and it melts to death. And they throw in the CPU of the Terminator from the first movie, thereby ending Skynet. But of course, we all know what's going to happen next. There's one left that has to also go into the molten lava. And obviously it's our friend, the Terminator. And John pleads with him not to go in, but he has to. And, we have the incredible line delivery from Arnold of, I don't know why you cry. It was something I can never do. Which, again, with another actor just would not fucking work. But the fact that he speaks in that way, he delivers it in that tone, it totally works. It's actually, I think it's one of the... I'm going to say something that's absolutely outrageous, but we've already destroyed our credibility with cats. I think it's one of the most beautiful lines in cinema. Because it's so, like... he doesn't like he didn't. It's that thing of like the guy who shouldn't even begin to comprehend this has formed an attachment with John, and you know it pays off. And like this is one of those moments as well. You watch this movie as a kid, it breaks your heart. It's like the end of Iron Giant. It just or a movie that I. Why is it always robots that make me emotional? But
I feel like there's a lot to unpack with you and robots, to be honest.
I want to be clear.
There's a lot going
fuck
on.
aliens, but pro robot.
So fuck aliens, love robots.
Yes, that's the message of Kino Inferno, if nothing else. I mean, I also know that you're
speak for yourself.
I know that you're a sucker for a robot because the Bicentennial Man gets you in the feels.
Do you know what, right? Let's not go down that road.
So I'm just saying, I
cry.
know that robots get you going as well.
He becomes a man, Aiden.
So does the Terminator!
No, not biologically. That's the important bit.
Anyway. And obviously, like one of the greatest images in Western cinema is the Terminator's thumbs up descending into the flames. But anyway, so moving on. We love the Terminator.
Got to rank him.
Oh, fucking 10 out of 10, 50 out of 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
50 out of 10, and I wish he was my dad.
There it is. There's the real crux of the issue.
Look,
there it is.
This movie...
he knows why you cry!
This movie has... Look, I'm going to be real with you, and I know my mum listens to this podcast, so it's going to be weird. This movie... Because I should... Right, okay. Okay, some context. In the year 2001, I went to America with my family, to Orlando, Florida. And one of the stops we made was the Universal Studios. At that time, they don't have it anymore, unfortunately. They had the Terminator 2 3D attraction. It was still running. This is a 3D film starring Linda Hamilton. No, is Linda Hamilton there? Well, Edward Furlong and Arnold Schwarzenegger are definitely in it. And there's also bits where stunt actors come out, and it's crazy. It's really good, really great. Shame they got rid of it. I think they replaced it with Minions. Anyway, the point is this.
Yeah.
This was the first Terminator thing I'd ever seen, because I was 2001. How old was I? I was born in 1993. So I was 8. Or thereabouts.
Not important.
But anyway, it left an impression on me. I saw this thing and I was like, I must watch The Terminator. And so my parents were like, you can't watch The Terminator. It's...
Seeing it in real life,
yeah,
fine.
well, this is the thing. Skewed
The movie.
Skewed ideas of what's acceptable. Because, and to be fair, The Terminator was rated 18 at this time in the UK. It's since been reduced to 15 by the BBFC, which I think is correct.
Yeah, understandably, yeah.
That warrants an 18. That said, Terminator 2 has always been a 15. But anyway, the point is this. They had Terminator 2 on VHS, and I pleaded with them to let me watch it because I was like, I want this. I even brought a Terminator poster from Orlando because I was like, I want this movie. I just knew that I needed to see it. So they eventually relented and let me watch Terminator 2 at the ripe age of 9. And obviously, it destroyed me as a child. But because, none of the violence bothered me. I was like, this is great, this is awesome, more violence, please. But the ending, obviously, like, it taught me how to feel. But so basically what I'm saying is, my dad had the VHS, he showed me the movie, he watched it with me, because, it had some... You wanted to make sure it wasn't, because at that age I got freaked out by like horror stuff quite easily.
I mean, let's face it, in this movie Robert Patrick impales people
through
the face.
The thing is, at that age I was more scared by ghosts and stuff for some reason. Like outright violence didn't bother me as much, but he was like, I'm not just gonna let you watch it, we'll watch it together. So I think this movie has some kind of like deep psychological connection to my own father that I cannot shake when I watch it, because So when the Terminator is like lowered into the molten lava at the end, it's like watching my own father be melted. So I think there's an emotional connection there that I don't think I'll ever quite shake.
I don't even know what to say to that. That's honestly so sweet and beautiful, and I was not expecting that from this episode.
This is the power of cinema, baby.
I thought this episode was all aboard the banter bus, and you just battered me with emotion.
I know, and I think this is why I find the ending of this movie and the character of the T-800 and his relationship with John so moving. It's like it's inextricably linked to my own childhood and my own father, and like I can't uncouple that bond. I mean, I also think even without that, it's an incredible scene. It's incredibly well done. It's the perfect ending to this movie. But at the same time, that is where I'm coming from. So, let's move on to the next character, Sarah Connor.
You probably already got the vibe from me what I think of Sarah Connor in this movie. I think she's fucking great. I love feral Sarah Connor. I love action heroine Sarah Connor. I love her entire arc in this movie. Linda Hamilton gives her best performance.
Well, this is the other... Yeah, I'd agree with that. This is the other kind of twist on the first one in this movie. So the first one, Linda Hamilton is like a waitress and just happens to be caught up in this crazy shit because she's going to be the mother of the saviour of mankind, John Connor. In this movie, she is living with the trauma of having seen the Terminator kill her housemate, some of her friends, and her lover, Michael Biehn from the future. And of course, she's lost her son because they've been separated, and she's now in a mental facility. So the Sarah we see is a very different person to the first one. And Linda Hamilton transformed her body for this movie, because she's fucking ripped in this movie. And
she's Carl Weathers in this movie.
Yeah, she's Carl Weathers level meat. Yeah, and she is like, it's an it's an iconic performance. Like, I think it says something that when you say Sarah Connor, like, this is what people think of. Like, they don't think of the first movie at all, really.
They don't think of victim Sarah Connor. They think of badass Sarah Connor.
I think she was actually nominated for an Academy Award for this. I don't think she won though, but she should have done. Cause...
I know that James Cameron definitely pushed for her to.
Yeah. There's definitely
nominated.
He definitely wanted her to be, and quite rightly so, because her performance is incredible in this. I mean, I think it's amazing anyway. But like, if you watch the first one as regularly as I do, it is night and day. Like, she's good in the first one, but in this one, I mean, there's more character to dig into in this one. She's not just like, what's going on? Whereas in this one, she's she's focused and determined and knows what she wants and what to do. But I also think one thing that makes this character iconic and kind of interesting, to revisit is like Cameron in the script, although she is an action heroine, she is a badass, and that is clear. She is not a perfect person. She's a very flawed person. And we've talked about this before. I think one of the issues that we have with a lot of kind of like quote-unquote female empowerment characters or the strong female character archetype, right, is that they're completely flawless. They're not interesting because they're just, studio people's idea of like what women want to see. They just want indestructible female badass. Whereas I think what we have here is definitely a female badass, but someone who is deeply, deeply flawed. And it kind of explores her not particularly healthy relationship with her son, her not particularly healthy relationship with herself as well, because we learn that, she's been from dodgy man to dodgy man. It's like that's tossed off in the dialogue. But you definitely get the sense that she has basically been going from person to person with the idea of like laying low, keeping off the grid, but also taking John to people who can teach him skills, is the sense that I always get from that. Like, she wants him to be with people who, can teach him how to shoot, can teach him how to do this and that and the other. But we definitely get, and again, it's played quite subtly. We don't get too much information on this. There's not a big backstory reveal. But, you have John kind of saying, like, we went from place to place before she was arrested, and, I've never had a proper home kind of thing. But we also get her narration, because Sarah narrates at various points in this movie, saying, as she watches the Terminator, she says, I get why John gravitates towards him, because he's like a father figure who won't hit him and won't drink and get angry with him. So you get the sense...
I like that scene a lot. Yeah. I really like that scene.
So you get the sense that there's been some questionable men since Michael Biehn died. Kyle Reese. The character's Kyle Reese, but yeah.
They can't all be Kyle Reese, and yeah, I see exactly what you're saying there. Like, she does allude to having a very troubled life, which is obviously evidenced by the fact that she's in a mental hospital and stabbing doctors and stuff.
That doctor, by the way, in the first movie and the third, Dr. Silberman.
Is it?
Yeah, he runs throughout all three because he is the police kind of therapist guy. He deals with her in the first movie, and then obviously in the... It's
been a long time since I've seen the first one, so I didn't really remember.
Then in the second one, he's in the mental facility, and he's like Sarah Connor's kind of his pet project. We get the sense, and then in the third movie, he turns up again for a cameo where he's in therapy, And then the sexy Terminator wrecks his shit, and he's like, "Oh God, not again!" So it's kind of played off as a joke in this one, but obviously in Terminator 3 rather. But obviously in this one, he's a bit more of a grounded character. But yeah, I love the interplay between her and the therapist. I love that you see how cunning she is, like early on, because you see that because obviously she's been ranting and raving about, because you see that great footage of her ranting and raving about Judgment Day and like everyone who's not wearing factor 10 million sunscreen is going to have a really bad day, which is a great line.
Yeah, fantastic dialogue.
Yeah, and that delivery is and this is just her watching herself on the screen, but that delivery in that footage where she's going like, "You're all fucking dead already," it's she's like, as you say, feral, intense.
Like she just goes buck wild in this movie, and it's great. Like, it's such a great performance.
And then you see obviously like she's trying to manipulate the Doctor by being like, "Oh, I don't believe that anymore. It's all delusion. There's no evidence." And it's a great performance because you see that duality where she is like just on a razor's edge at all times, because obviously she knows what's coming. She's seen the evidence, and this is her gospel. This idea of like Judgment Day is coming. It is inevitable. It is going to happen. Like that is, even though she has this idea of no fate but what we make that Kyle Reese kind of gave her. Like she's on that edge of like, well, of course you would be if you knew this future was going to happen. Already has happened.
Oh, you go fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you absolutely would.
Yeah. And it's kind of, I think it's like I said, it's an incredible performance. It's a well-written character. I'm also a big fan of the scene where, because we should say later on in the movie, she goes down to track Miles Dyson, who will go on to create Skynet, because they've got the remains of the Terminator from the last movie, and they're retrofitting technology. You get it. You've seen the movie.
We all know Terminator.
Yeah, when Sarah Connor turns up, sniping at him and stuff, like doing a home invasion, I think that scene's so cool because it's just that thing of like, she's become the Terminator. She's become the thing that she fears. And so obviously we have this thing of the duality between her and the Terminator itself, where like the Terminator is becoming more human and she's become more like a machine. Like she doesn't have.
And it's also like she has become the Terminator, and like he's become the more parental figure that John so clearly needs as well.
Yeah.
Whereas that's something that she can't be because she's just so traumatized from the events of the first movie.
Yeah, and then as it goes on, we get to see more and more of her, because that's another great emotional scene in this movie where John and the Terminator show up to stop her from killing Miles Dyson. And she's kind of stopped anyway by the fact that she sees he's got a family and kids and everything, and it kind of starts to hit home what she's actually doing. But then I really love Linda Hamilton's delivery in the scene where, John turns up and she's like dazed, but turns to him and just kind of goes, "You came to stop me from killing him." And then there's just a pause, and she just hugs him and goes, "I love you." And I love that because it's so like, this is the first time in the movie where we actually get to see her being a mother. The rest of the time she's kind of cussing him out. She's kind of being like, "Fuck you and your decision making." Especially, we should say, in the director's cut. So one scene that's missing, it's a famous missing scene. But it's the one scene that I think is essential. The rest is kind of character fluff, which is fine, but like, I like it because I'm a fan. It's not essential to the movie, and it does kind of throw the pacing off. But this scene, I think, should have been in it. So there's a scene where the Terminator, after they first rescue Sarah Connor, says, "Oh, my CPU, Skynet closes it off. But if you, fuck around with it, do some computer magic, you can turn the learning on, and that's what helps me learn to be more human. And it's implied that's what helps him gain emotions." In the normal cut, he just goes, "The more I'm around humans, the more I learn," and that's kind of all you get. But in the director's cut, yes, we have this scene where they carefully remove the CPU, the Terminator goes offline, and Sarah goes to smash the CPU. And this is the point where her and John have a conflict, because John's like, "Well, we don't need to destroy it. If you can learn, if you can be more like us, Bob your uncle, Fanny your aunt. Great idea. We've got a pet Terminator." And Sarah's obviously
like, the most valuable asset we have against this other Terminator.
And then Sarah's obviously like, "No, fuck that. They're all evil. Get rid of it." And I do think this is an essential scene for Sarah's character, even more than the Terminator's, because we get to see her mentality where she's just like, "Fuck it. There's no nuance to this. There's good and there's evil, and I hate the evil. I hate the machines. Get rid of them." But she's eventually swayed by John to not destroy the CPU and allow the Terminator to be with her. And that, I will say, the one thing about that scene that I think is essential for the Terminator, well, it's actually more just how it characterizes Skynet, who's obviously like, in these movies is just kind of an unseen force that will eventually come into being. In later movies, they show it a bit, and it's always a bit crap. But in this movie, it's the dreaded, it's the thing that's coming.
Yeah. The unseen force, the one that's sort of pulling all the strings. I mean, I've not really seen any of the movies past the third one, so I don't really know how they depict Skynet.
Good choice.
I'm fine with my choice.
So anyway, all this Terminator rambling aside, I think that scene is kind of essential for Sarah's character because it shows how far she's gone into this, that she's not even considering the logical thing of like, well, we need the Terminator to fight the other Terminator. It's just pure visceral, I hate this thing, kill it, get rid of it. Even though she's seen evidence that it's on their side.
I mean, she and John are both alive, so...
But also I think it's crucial because you see her eventually deferring to John, and that's kind of the first time we see her do that. And it happens later on, like with Miles Dyson, when, she realises, like, oh, he's actually come here to stop me from doing this. And, like, he's right to do so. And this is maybe how we can segue into John. So if you've got any last words about Sarah.
I feel like you've really...
Sorry, I am rambling about this movie, I'm aware.
No, it's fine, because, again, trust me, when the Scream episode comes up, you ain't getting a word in that. But no, you've really kind of put all the points across about Sarah that I would. Like, I just think her character is a lot more interesting in this movie. I do like her in the first movie, where she's very much more like the sort of final girl archetype. But what they do with her in this movie, and the kind of nuance and the sort of depth that they put into the character in this one is fantastic, and you can see it in so many characters in, like, modern movies.
Yeah, it's definitely an influence on Halloween 2018, I would say.
Yeah, like Laurie Strode has just become Sarah Connor, and then in a weird twist,
dark
Sarah
fate,
Connor has come back as a result of Laurie Strode and all this. But I feel like Laurie Strode originally, you could tell that she was an influence on Sarah Connor in Terminator, and
it goes back and forth, the feedback loop.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like of all of the depictions of Sarah Connor, this is the best one from what I gather.
100%. Emilia Clarke, get in the fucking bin.
I mean, she's not a fantastic actress anyway, so casting her as Sarah Connor, I was like, that's fucking stupid.
Get in the fucking bin, love.
I mean, Game of Thrones is chock full of great actors, and Emilia Clarke is not one.
It's also chock full of people who've played Sarah Connor, because Lena Headey played Sarah Connor in the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
She did in the TV series, didn't she?
Which I've also seen, listeners.
I remember seeing some of that, and it being quite good.
It is the best Terminator thing since Terminator 2. But it's...
the main thing I remember is that Shirley Manson, lead singer of Garbage, is
in it.
Yes,
she plays a Terminator who becomes good, ? It's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that, but we're not talking about the Sarah Connor Chronicles, although we could possibly talk about that at some point.
We won't.
Wink. No, we won't. I'm not watching 2 seasons for this fucking show.
Yeah, no, fuck that shit. Because these are old school seasons as well, so it's like 22 episodes per season.
And if I remember correctly, it got fucking cancelled, so it doesn't have a proper ending anyway, so fuck that noise.
It got unfairly cancelled, actually. But anyway, that's another story for another day. We're not talking about the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
But no, yeah, so... No, you've definitely said everything that I think I would want to say about Sarah Connor, so again, solid 10. Boom.
Solid 10 out of 10. So, moving on to the third lead of this movie, the one and only Eddie Furlong. The one and thankfully only Eddie Furlong. Look, we are not going to talk too much about Eddie Furlong's troubled life. Needless to say, Hollywood child actor, stuff gets real weird. He's made some questionable choices himself. He's also had some questionable choices made upon him. If you want to know any more about that, Google is your friend. We're talking about Eddie Furlong in this movie, Terminator 2, where he plays John Connor, the saviour of mankind. Go!
I find his character all over the place, but intentionally so.
Yeah, he's like a 10.
Because
he's like a 10-year-old.
He's a
10-year-old, 15-year-old boy.
Yeah, he's kind of all over the place. He's kind of grating in some scenes. He's also kind of funny in some scenes. He's shown to be some kind of fucking like prodigy of crime.
Well, I think that's supposed to be Sarah's teaching of him.
Yeah, Sarah's influence on him and like the things that she's been showing him. Because
he hacks that ATM.
He does, and apparently ATM security was for shit in those days, and I hope the money that him and Ginger Mullet Kid came in handy, because they need another CD, because they only just listened to that one Guns N' Roses song.
They are blasting that Guns N' Roses song.
They are.
As they're tooling around on their BMXs. What a time to be alive! 1991.
And it just keeps cutting back to them listening to that same song. I was like, take that money, buy a fucking album, and stop
we know
listening
he
to
likes
that one
Public
song.
Enemy because he's wearing a Public Enemy shirt the whole movie.
That's very true. We'll go buy a Public Enemy album. But no,
Cameron and the lads got their money's worth from that GNR song, didn't they? Because it's in the end credits as well.
There's even a nice little nod to Guns N' Roses in the bit where Arnie's walking down the corridor in the mall, and he has the shotgun, which is hidden within a box of roses, so it's a literal Guns N' Roses. You see what they did there? That's very clever.
Flips the shotgun out of the box. It's sick as hell, and I don't give a shit.
It is pretty fucking sweet, to be honest.
Those roses fall down in Zack Snyder-esque slow motion as well.
But I think what I've got to say is, like, I feel like he's mostly good, but he does kind of...
Sorry to interrupt, I've just had a nightmare vision of Zack Snyder's Terminator. Ugh. Sorry, go on.
No one needs
no
that.
One, right,
Nobody
if Warner Bros., if anyone who's involved in the Terminator franchise is listening, no one needs that. Please don't do it.
I'm telling you right now, if it suddenly gets announced that Snyder's doing Terminator, I'm holding you personally responsible.
I will sell Terminator if that happens.
No, I mean, I think John Connor is good in this movie, but he just kind of get on my tits in certain parts.
Yeah, and I think he's supposed to, because like he is an annoying little shit. Like there is that scene where they come across the two toughs, who John starts mouthing off to.
Yeah, just because he wants the T-800 to beat the shit out of them, which he does.
Yeah, he's about to fucking kill them until John's like, you can't do that.
And John, I'm like, John, mate, you instigated that.
Yeah.
Like,
I think what I like about this, I'm going to say this as a Terminator connoisseur. I think John Connor is way more interesting as a child than he ever is as an adult, and I think that is a key flaw of every subsequent Terminator movie. Is they think we want to see the badass John Connor, and I think audiences think they want that. But I always think what makes the character compelling in this movie is the discrepancy between who we know he's going to be and who he is now, which is like a little shit.
yeah, I suppose as well, because I've not really seen the other sequels or anything, but I suppose it's definitely more interesting to see a character at a point where they discover who they're going to become and sort of when they're first sort of dipping their toes in this world, as opposed to later down the line when we already know what their character is and what they're supposed to do. Like it's way more interesting to see the sort of journey for them becoming that as opposed to them being that.
Yeah, and I think like the sequels after this kind of fundamentally misunderstand like the key aspect of John in this movie is we do get the shades of what John will become later on. But it's not because he's a badass, it's not because he ever does anything with guns or anything like that. What we see is how he brings out the best in the people around him. So like we've already said this movie, we've already said about this scene where Sarah goes to kill Miles Dyson and he stops it from happening. We see, he teaches the Terminator the value of human life. And to the point where the Terminator's like, I know I need to go, but I don't want to, sort of thing at the end. And we even see this with Miles Dyson, because ultimately the plan to take it to Cyberdyne is John's plan. The plan to kind of go and change the future is John's plan. I mean, admittedly, Sarah is the one who goes to kill Miles, but John's the one who says, well, we don't need to kill him, let's get him on side. And I think that's the crucial element that the sequels always kind of get wrong to this, is like, it's not about John being this messiah figure. It's not about him being this ultimate badass. It's about like...
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Is that, from what I gather, they build him up, as you say, to be this messianic figure. And it's like, I've never thought of him in that sense. It's just like, no, he's a tactician. He knows how to formulate a plan. He's not like fucking God or anything.
Yeah, and he knows how to use... I mean, I think the Sarah Connor Chronicles have an interesting take on future John, where you never see him, but you see flashbacks to the future where characters who've come back to the past are like reminiscing about like John Connor, but they all talk about him in like different terms, so you get this sense of he's not a universally beloved character at the point. And like there's the stuff that people don't trust about him, like he reprograms machines, and a lot of the humans don't like that because they're like, well, we don't want machines working with us. But you get the sense like they have an interesting take on it. But I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of Sarah Connor Chronicles too much, because we'll be here all day. But they have an interesting take on it where it's less that he becomes this beloved figure, and it's more like his actions go towards the salvation of the human race. And so like kind of after the fact he's seen as this messianic figure. Whereas I think this movie is more about like we're seeing him become even slightly, the leader that he will become. And I think the crucial message is, like, he has this compassion for people. Despite the fact that he is a little shit and he's a little troublemaker and he kind of goes against the rules and all this kind of stuff, like, we do see that he has this fundamental, like, no, there is a value to human life. Even someone like Miles Dyson, who, like, we know is going to lead to this atrocity, you know, he brings out this nobility in the people around him. You know, he stops Sarah from being the cold, hard killer. He stops the Terminator from just being someone who will just kill and be ruthless just as a means to an end. So yeah, I think that's kind of my take on John. I do think Eddie is a little annoying in some scenes, but I also think that kind of works.
Just a tad.
I think it works because you pair him with Arnold, who's kind of always like...
Yeah, and I think those two work really well together, and I think he's good at putting a lot of the humour across as well, and you can... Yeah, him and Arnie do have a lot of chemistry, and that really does help, but yeah, he is a little bit of a shit.
There are some not great line deliveries. I want to shout out... Miles Dyson, she's gonna blow him away! That's one of the worst deliveries in this movie. There's also... We got Skynet by the balls now, don't we? It's a pretty bad delivery, but for the most part, as a child actor, he acquits himself pretty well.
Yeah, I'd say he's pretty good. I mean, ratings-wise, I'd give him a 7, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to give John a 7, I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, actually, do you know what? I'm going to give him a 7 as an adult, but as a kid, I'm giving him a 9. Because I think as a kid, you identify with that character, you know? Whereas now as an adult, I'm like, you're kind of annoying, kid. Shut up.
I mean, I didn't really see this movie as a kid, so I can't say I relate to child John Connor, but I can, after the emotional spiel you've given me, I can totally see why.
Yeah.
Very touching, very touched by it. Touched by a Terminator.
See, Mark, mate,
the Aidan Barkadine story.
Where did the Terminator touch you on the stall? Prince Andrew Terminator. Oh, I forgot to make a Prince Andrew joke in the Predator section. God damn it.
You just did, it's fine.
Add it in post. So we're running a bit long, so let's breeze through the last couple of characters. I think T-1000, Miles Dyson, and then we can call it a day.
That's fine, yeah.
So, T-1000. Iconic character. Robert Patrick.
Yep.
Playing the first variant Terminator that we've seen, really, because the only previous ones we've seen is the Arnie Terminator. This guy can turn into liquid metal. And obviously... revolutionary CGI, blah, blah, blah. You know all that. I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on Robert Patrick. What do you think to Robert Patrick's performance in this movie?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's so great. And I did a little bit of reading prior to recording about like what he based his performance on. It seems like it was a variety of animals that he based it on. And you get that. Like, he is very much like an apex predator. Just in the way that he moves. Like, he's genuinely very intimidating in this movie. And this is coming from somebody who is a huge X-Files fan and knows him as Doggett from the X-Files.
I knew you were going to bring this up.
Yeah. Of course I would, because it's me, and I fucking love the X-Files. But no, yeah, he's genuinely intimidating in this movie. The way that he runs with, like, the sort of, you know, fixed expression, no blinking, no breathing, aside from, like, through the nose kind of thing. Like, that is such great...
like, when you see him, like, pursuing the car, like, I'm doing the gesture. Anyone who's seen the movie knows the run, right? He has those, like...
Apparently, he trained so hard for this role that the bit where Eddie Furlong is on the bike, he could keep up with him.
Fuck, really?
Like, apparently, he had to slow down at times because he could keep up with him. Like, I was like, genuinely, I read that and I was like, I do not want to, like, mess with Robert Patrick. Like, he could take down the dude from Predator. You know who I mean, the crazy one.
Yeah. Sonny. So...
Sonny, that's the one.
So anyway, listen. Yeah, I think Robert Patrick is, like, fucking amazing in this movie. Like, even with the special effects doing a lot of the work for him, his performance is just fucking great. Like, when you see him... I love that you see, by contrast to Arnie, like, you see the upgrade. You see that he is, like, a chameleon in this world. Like, he can... Like, when he's being the policeman at the start and he's kind of, you know... Hi, have you seen this kid? You know, he's, like, very charming and very, like... measured, and then you see when people walk away, like, that just drop back to the robotic face.
Yeah,
it's so great. Cool, and it's just like you know that Arnie's kind of outclassed by him as well, you know, because it takes a lot of effort to get this guy down, and Arnie takes a fucking pummeling off this dude, because it's that thing of, like, you're kind of seeing the blunt object in Arnie and the scalpel in the T-1000.
Yes, that's a really great way of putting it, I'd say. Yeah, yeah, he's just, again, I think he's just an apex predator. Like, and I love how cold he is as well. I love that bit where he gets in the helicopter and turns to the other guy and just says, "Get out."
Yeah, that's awesome.
And the guy
just fucking bails out of the chopper. It's so good.
Because you would.
Yeah, I fucking would.
You would.
I fucking would.
Oh yeah, I love him. I love how he can, like, you know, turn into other characters, because there's that the really iconic bit where.
Oh yes, we should shout this out because
up.
obviously the T-1000 does get played by a couple of other people. No,
very true, and they are, for the sort of brief time that they do play the character, they are very good. But I feel like they're very much emulating.
Oh yeah, for sure, yeah.
The original.
You have the iconic "your foster parents are dead" scene, which is the one scene in this movie that did kind of, like, as a kid I was like, oh fucking hell. Where obviously
like, that scene's great.
Yeah, well, I mean, people know the scene, right? They call up John's foster parents to make sure they're safe, and it's Janet Goldstein from Aliens.
Yes.
Who wore brownface and pretended to be Mexican in that movie.
We're not going to talk about that, though.
We will when we eventually cover Aliens. Fun fact,
yes.
No longer acting.
Wink.
No longer acting, but which is a shame. But does run her own business. She produces large cup bras for the bustier woman.
Fair play.
Fair play.
Vasquez, love you.
She's got big badonkadonks and she's turned it into a business.
And we respect that. Rebuild yourself, bitch.
Rebuild yourself, bitch. I'll tell you who can't rebuild themselves is John Connor's foster parents, though. They are dead as fuck.
They are completely fucked.
Yes. And it's fucking great, isn't it? Because you see, obviously, the T-1000's got to them. Because it's that great fucking bit of... You can hear the dog barking in the background, which is a reference to the first movie where dogs get freaked out by Terminators because they look human but they smell wrong. Just as a nice little detail that I've always liked. But so you see that, obviously they call, and there's that great pan around Janet Goldstein as the foster dad's just kind of fucking around in the background, and you just hear the off camera, and then it pans round to her with the blade arm, and it's gone through the milk carton and into the guy's mouth and out the back of his head, and you're just like,
that's just great.
It's so fucking sick. It's just that instant. It's the fact that he being the T-1000 waits for the guy to get just lined up and then just one hit.
I think what I like as well is the T-1000 keeps some of the horror elements from the first movie as well, and I like every time he kills somebody, it's always really fucking vicious.
Yeah, and that scene
like
is
when he
eerie
kills...
as well. That scene.
Yeah, again, and I like that there's still shades of the original movie in this one, because it is tonally it's a very, very different beast. But I like that they still actually portray the Terminators as being these insanely terrifying, cold-blooded killers, which they are. Because comparatively, Arnie's a big fluffy teddy bear in this movie.
Oh yeah. I mean, he does have some of that classic Terminator coldness, especially in that scene. Just because obviously he calls them, the dog's going. He goes, "What's the dog's name?" And then in John's voice goes, "The dog's name is Max." And then John's voice goes, "What's wrong with Wolfie?" And obviously he knows it's the T-1000 because she goes, "Wolfie's fine, honey. When are you coming home? Where are you?" like Janet Goldstein is fucking great in that scene as well with the, "Where are you?" Like, where is your exact location? It's so fucking... It's that way of just... she definitely emulates Patrick's way of just being a little bit off. Like, it's just that little bit of like, ooh.
There's a really fun little detail that only occurred to me.
Sorry, I forgot to finish the point I was making. Do that next. But but then you get the classic coldness of Arnie hanging up and just, "Your foster parents are dead." Because at that point he doesn't care about the emotional side of it. He's just stating a fact.
Yeah, one thing about that scene in particular, actually, which didn't occur to me till I read about it, was that that's the only sequence, really, where the two Terminators actually communicate with one another, and they're not communicating in their voices, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, and the rest of the time they're just taking chunks out of each other.
Yeah, they're just having a big old scrap.
And I love the effects as well when the T-1000 gets shot by stuff. Like, there's one point where they blow his head in half, and it's this like weird liquid metal, like two halves of the head's freaking out.
I have to admit, though, there is one or 2 points early in the movie where he gets shot, and it just looks like they've got foil dinner plates and just stuck it on his uniform. Like, for a movie where the special effects are so highly regarded, there is one or two little instances of practical effects that I'm like, oh, that's not aged particularly well.
It's over 20 years old at this point, so it's...
Yeah, I get it, but like I think the CG stuff, particularly the stuff involving the T-1000, still looks pretty great, and like I said previously, the combination with the cinematography really helps sell it and makes it look believable. So yeah, it's fine by me. It's just, yeah, those weird foil dinner plate gunshots are a bit odd for my taste.
One more thing before we move on to Miles Dyson. I do like how the T-1000 does develop a personality as well. Like, he becomes... It's subtle, but he goes from just being a cold-hearted killer to, like, he's enjoying this now. Cause
there's a real sadism.
Because there's a point at the end where, Sarah almost gets him. Shoots him several times with the shotgun, is about to blow him off the edge and into the lava, but then she's out of bullets. And, the T-1000 does his face.
Yeah.
And there's also, like, when he turns... Oh! Sorry, one special effects thing that we have to shout out. Because obviously the T-1000 turns into people. And there's various points where people are looking at themselves, played as the T-1000 playing them. Every time they do this, it's twins. Because Linda Hamilton's a twin.
The security guards in the hospital, they are the guys from Gremlins 2. Yes,
they are. And it's that's just a cool little detail that I love, is that, like, rather than try and CGI it or do trick photography or anything like that, it's got twins. This is practical. And I'm sure that was inspired by the fact that he knew Linda Hamilton had a twin sister, so they could do that.
Yeah, and it probably was giving him the idea, like, oh, we could do two.
Yeah. There's a scene at the end where T-1000 Sarah turns up, and every time it's the wide shot with them both in it, it's Linda Hamilton and her sister. Every time it cuts to the close-up, it's Linda Hamilton. And again, Linda Hamilton does a good job as the T-1000 as well. I love that scene where where he's torturing her as well, where he goes, call out to John, I know this hurts. That's so fucked. It's just like, that's what I mean, the T-1000 becomes a little bit of a sadist. After he goes in that hydrant and gets blown to pieces and reconstitutes himself, he's got a different attitude.
I think it's a wise move on James Cameron's part there, though, to make him become a sadist, because you kind of have to make the audience hate him towards the end. Like, you have to want to see Arnie actually kill him, because he's just too cool of a fucking character otherwise.
I think as well, like, the director's cut adds in an interesting detail where after he goes in the hydrogen, and there's the obviously the famous "Hasta la vista, baby," where Arnie shoots him and he shatters into 1,000 pieces, but then starts to reconstitute. The director's cut adds back in a few shots where you see the T-1000 glitching. So there's almost the implication that the sadism is like a glitch, because the Terminators are not normally sadistic; they're just efficient. They're ruthless, but that's because they don't care about human life. Whereas, like, this Terminator starts to become like, no, I've got a vendetta, like, because he doesn't need to kill Sarah Connor, but he's going to at this point. He's just like, fuck this shit. He only needs to kill John, but yeah. So T-1000 out of 10, I'm giving him a 10.
I'm right there with you. He's fantastic. Love him.
So, last character we're going to talk about. We can wrap this up pretty quickly, I think. We've got Joe Morton playing the role of Miles Dyson. A supporting role, but a key supporting role in this movie. The creator of
Skynet. Very integral to the story, yeah.
Yeah, the original creator of Skynet. The sequels kind of fuck this up by every time, because he dies in this movie. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert at this point. So every time they're like, oh, there's a new event, they always shift, somebody else does it. Fuck that off. But, so, what do you make of this character, Miles Dyson?
I like his character. I kind of like the fact that initially he doesn't see his work as being this true work of evil. It actually takes him being confronted with it and having it forced in his face to actually realise the implications of what he's actually doing. Yeah. And I think you were telling me that the extended cut, or the director's cut, at least kind of fleshes his character out a little bit more, because I do like his character in this movie, but I feel like there's not enough screen time with him.
The thing is, having more screen time with him, it kind of fucks with the pacing. But yeah, there is definitely, like, you see more of him, because in the theatrical cut, you see him at the start when he's like, they have the two keys to go into where the Terminator CPU's kept and all that, and then you don't see him again until Sarah, like, turns up at his house,
goes to kill him. Yeah.
Whereas, like, in the director's cut, you see a bit more of him. Like, you see him, like, his family life, and you see that, like, he is like a caring father and husband, but also he's like a bit of a workaholic. So you get the sense that he's kind of not quite factored in, like, the evil of what he's doing, because it's just his job and he's doing it relentlessly at this point. So you do get, like, a little more texture. Again, it's not something you need for the theatrical cut, I don't think. Because I think, to be fair,
but I think it's definitely missing.
Yeah, I think Joe Morton does a fantastic job of playing this role as well. Like,
oh yeah, he's
like,
great.
You do believe that he takes the turn like that in the theatrical cut. Again, in the director's cut, it kind of it lays the groundwork. Oh, he's not actually that bad a guy to begin with. Like, he's just a guy who happens to work in tech, who's kind of been swept up in this. But yeah, my favourite part of his performance is when they lay it down for him in the, you know, where the Terminator strips off its arm and you've got the mechanical arm below, so he proves that he's a machine. And they have the whole conversation about, you know, Sarah's monologue tells us the machine lays it all down for him and all this kind of stuff. My favourite moment of his performance is where he starts talking about, like, well, we just found the chip. It was scary stuff, super advanced. You know, beyond anything we could think. I mean, without this, we would have never. And then everyone's kind of looking at him, and he's like, yeah, but we need to destroy it. You know, he has this moment of, like, you see the duality of the character, where, like, and the kind of, like, thing of science in general, where it's like, you know, the more you progress, human ideas, human technology, the more you have the capacity to, well, as the Terminator says, it's in your nature to destroy yourselves. And I think Miles kind of proves that, even though he's kind of a decent guy. Like, if no one had stopped him and gone, listen, what you're doing is going to cause untold catastrophes, you know, he would never have stopped. He would have just continued doing what he was doing, and he would have created Skynet. Yeah, no,
I do think that it does need that little bit extra texture, though, right? Especially because like his role in the overall story is so integral to his actions put the events in motion, essentially. I feel like, I do need that little bit extra. I do like him in the movie, and I feel like the theatrical cut does put his character across well, but I don't think he's in the movie enough to begin with. Yeah. I need a little bit more from him, and again, I know that's in the director's cut, and rightly so, I guess.
Yeah, I think, it's a great performance, I think. Like, he's super kind of likeable, despite what you know he's capable of, I guess.
Yeah, he's not stereotypically evil, which I feel like is the route they could have gone down with it. I feel like he's somebody who kind of just gets swept up in the excitement of discovering this insane technology, and
as many people would
realize. Yeah, exactly. I feel like he's not intrinsically an evil person, but he's human ultimately, and I feel like that does come across. But I'd like a little bit more time.
Yeah, you also get to see in that scene. There's a great monologue from Linda Hamilton, which is going on about, you fucking guys are all the same. You think you're so creative. You don't know what it's like to create a life in your womb. All you can do is destroy. And then John cuts her off going, Mum, we need to be a little more productive. I always like that bit. But because I like that even though she's had the turn to being like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be a dickhead, she still has that element of, like, she's insane, you know?
Yeah, like, it's Linda Hamilton doing her best, sort of staring down her eyebrows, smoking, acting, and she's just great.
I love this whole scene. I love fucking Miles Dyson's wife getting involved as well, being like, aren't we changing things, though, just by having this conversation? Like, I love all that. I love how... Because, you know what, we said Mullet Kid is a real one. Shout out to Miles Dyson's wife, who in the director's cut is perfectly chill with him being a bit of a workaholic, but is like, hey, maybe take the weekend off once in a while. So supportive there. But also in this scene is like rolling with the punches. She's like, look, some woman turned up with two dubious dudes to try and kill my husband. Turns out he now thinks they're sound. And also, we've got to blow up your work. Fair enough. Like, you know.
I think she's just like, we'll do whatever you say, just don't shoot me.
I think she's a real one. I think she's just like, you know what, ride or die. And
the characters in this movie, they surround themselves with the best kind of people.
They do. The real G's. Unfortunately, Miles Dyson comes a cropper. Gets shot. Does he get shot by the T-1000? I always forget this. It must be, right? He gets...
I watched this last night, and
But anyway,
we've been talking a while.
Yeah, but the crucial thing is, he gets shot. He's bleeding out. And Miles Dyson's a real one, because he's like because like the cops burst in pursuing them, and he's like, look, I'm gonna die. I'll stay here. He has the grenade in his hand. There's that great scene where he has the line to the cops was like, you better go. I don't know how long I can hold this on for. You know, I love it. I think, you know, he's for such a minor character, so memorable. The performance is great. Obviously, his death scene's great. Again, the director's cut kind of adds a little bit more in, and that's a good thing. But even in the theatrical cut, I think he leaves an impression. You know, he's got a cool name as well.
No, he's a very important part of this film, and the performance is great, the death scene's great.
I think it's just that subversion as well of like all 80s movies, including Cameron's own movie like Aliens. They always have that company man who's like the snake, the treacherous dog. Whereas I like that in this movie, Miles is just a working stiff who's fundamentally a decent bloke, And you know, he likes Sarah. He's like, you know, I want to make the world safe for my kids. Unfortunately, he comes a cropper, and it's very sad. But yes, so I think Miles Dyson, I'm going to give him a strong 8.5 as a character.
I'm about there with you, 7 or 8, around that sort of territory.
Also, quick shout out, Joe Morton plays, funnily enough, the father/inventor of Cyborg in the Justice League movies. So there is so Zack Snyder maybe is cribbing from Terminator a little bit.
Stop willing this into existence. I don't want a Snyder Terminator movie.
Nobody does, bro. Nobody does. So, that's that. I think we're on Kino Inferno now.
Yeah, I feel like, much like with Predator, you could definitely speak much more about this movie. I feel like we both could, but it's probably best to just... Do we even need to ask the question? It's straight Kino.
Yeah, this is fucking Kino. I don't know how anyone could say otherwise. I'm in fact just going to... we don't need to say much more than this, but I think my closing statements on this are going to be as follows. We've done this episode of the pod. We've done it about two, what I've termed popcorn munchers. I think it's safe to say they are popcorn movies. They are blockbusters in that sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Predator is one kind of popcorn movie, and Terminator 2 is another kind. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying Terminator 2, I think, is like has more going on, whereas Predator is just there for the fun, you know.
Terminator 2 is a much more sophisticated
film, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Whereas Predator is Predator is kind of like the beer and pizza movie elevated to an art form. I'd say that. But what I want to say about Terminator 2, and it kind of stretches out to Predator and all these movies that we like, right, that are of this kind of standard and caliber, but especially for me, Terminator 2, because that's where I'm coming from, right, is I know so many people, right, these fucking so-called cinephiles, yeah, who, you know, blockbuster film, I don't like it, it's entertainment film, I don't like that. It's not art like a proper film. Listen, fuck you, yeah? These movies are art. These movies are cinema. I mean, even fucking Martin Scorsese, his definition of cinema in that fucking interview, yeah? He goes, Marvel movies don't try and put you in the perspective of the headspace or try to explain a mentality to you of another character, right? So I'm going to say this. Both these movies, by Martin Scorsese's definition, are cinema then. Because you get the primal... warrior-born psychology of Dutch in Predator, and also Terminator 2 fucking is a humanist fable underneath all the coolness. It's ultimately about like having compassion for your fellow man rises you above the machines. You can rebel against your fucking oppressive systems just by being decent to one another. That is the real message of Terminator 2 and John Connor. I mean, they kind of fucked that up in the sequels, obviously, but we don't talk about that.
No, that doesn't matter. We could just gloss over that.
But you know what I mean? Like, if you're trying to turn around and tell me that this isn't great storytelling, this isn't great art, even. Because I think these movies are art. I mean, you look at fucking...
100%.
You know, alright, it might not be fucking a 3-hour Russian movie about how everyone's depressed, but this is art, man.
These movies don't need to have these like huge fucking deep dives, even though they do definitely have those kinds of elements to them. But ultimately, I would say comparing these to these, like, you know, these fucking long ass art movies, or like these, you know, kitchen sink dramas and all these kind of movies that people really kind of ascribe all these deeper meanings to. I'll watch those movies once and definitely enjoy them and take a lot away from them and engage with them on an emotional level. Absolutely. Am I going to watch them multiple times with friends?
No.
Absolutely not.
Am I going to be quoting them to my buddies for the rest of time?
Exactly. Like, I have watched Predator so many times, and when we came to do the episode and I watched it again, I was excited.
Yeah, I was so excited to watch both these movies, and I've seen them both before.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, I feel like you can't write these movies off and say they have no merit, because they do. Like, these movies mean more to any, but like, I'll do that again. Sorry. These movies mean more to a lot of people than any of these supposed high art or, you know,
this is the communal experience
classics
of cinema. You know what I'm saying? This is
the
stuff that you share with your buddies. You get excited about. It's fun. It's cool. And like, fucking hell, like, I think there's something to, like, whenever I've got Terminator 2 on, I was watching it last night, obviously. My partner comes in and sees I'm watching Terminator 2, and she immediately goes, "Oh, this is your favourite movie. You love this." And even that is just like, that's such a small detail, but it's nothing to anyone. It means nothing to anyone but me. But it's kind of like the fact that she can see the movie, she knows what parts I'm going to be like getting excited about. She knows that she knows when the steel mill comes on. She's like, you need to be alone. I'll go do something else.
She gets your blanket ready for you. Yeah.
Why, Robot Father? Why? But again, this speaks to what we're saying, because we both said we watch these movies with our dads, and like this is kind of the thing. It's like that is part of what art is about: is sharing it with people around you, sharing it with your friends, with your family, and these are the movies that you share. We're not all going to sit around and watch Stalker. You know what I'm saying? I've seen Stalker. It was good. It's 3 hours long and depressing. It's a good movie. We might talk about it on the podcast one day. But I should also say, as just to put a cap on my point here, Andrei Tarkovsky, director of Stalker, Solaris, many other depressing Russian films, was a big fan of, can you guess what movie? The Terminator. He said it was one of the finest American films he'd seen in the decade of the 1980s. So
I knew there was a reason that you were predominantly focusing on the Russian movie.
He knows me now, listeners. You see that? He knows that I'm gearing. He knows what I'm circling around to a point.
I mean, it's like we've said on this show before. It's that classic quote from John Waters, isn't it? So it's to truly appreciate cinema, you have to go to both ends of the spectrum. And I can't abide anybody that will write off any kind of blockbuster or popcorn muncher, as we're going with on this. I can't abide anybody that just writes them all off and saying they have no merit, no artistic value, because that is just
bullshit.
100% bullshit. It's absolute horseshit.
It's elitist nonsense. And look, I know a lot about the cinema of history. We don't have time. Let me try that again. I know a lot about the history of cinema. We don't have time to get into some of this stuff. But cinema was created as a populist art form. It was created to be something cheap to make, although that's gone out the window, and cheap to watch.
Oh yeah, like very much not the case anymore.
But the point is, it was made by people who wanted to make a quick buck, but also by people who wanted, like, this is a communal experience. This is something that the common man can walk in off the street and watch. And both these movies, your man or woman, or otherwise, off the street, can come in, watch these movies, get the same thing out of it as everyone else does, and just kind of get into this like cool, fun, exciting, dark in some places, but you can get riled up by these movies. Like we said, Predator gets you pumped. Terminator 2 gets you pumped, and then you feel more than you've ever felt in your life at the end. And then, you know what I'm saying? This is what I mean. These are the movies that bring the fucking house down. And there's a place for that, even among, the collection of cinephiles. You don't get to call yourself a cinephile if you write off an entire style of filmmaking.
Absolutely, you cannot even begin. I mean, the word cinephile is almost like a dirty word these days, anyway, because it just means that you're a bit of a snob, and that's not true. A cinephile is somebody who loves cinema, and therefore you have to love all of it. You can't just love bits of it. You have to kind of love all of it, even in like genres that you might not particularly like. You can't just write them off as having no intrinsic merit because it's all art, it's all meaningful, it all has a purpose. Well said, Mark.
Thank you. And on that bombshell, that has been it for Kino Inferno Season 1.
It's over. We're so tired.
It's over. We can lower ourselves into the molten steel. It's too soon. I can't even make that joke. But
it's all right, baby. I'll go in first.
Your thumbs up.
I will. I'll let you have that one last little moment before we say goodbye to everybody.
A little bit of housekeeping. We are going to be pre-recording Season 2, basically in the interim before it comes out. That's this little peek behind the curtain. However, just to keep you going, we're going to give you a pepper and a few bonus episodes. The next one we're finally doing the long-promised, the long-gestating Aidan and Mark versus the Scream franchise. The first episode of the show where I say nothing, and Mark just talks for 4 hours.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm
going to also tease, because I should say these don't have release dates. These are just going to come out as and when in the interim of us recording for Season 2. Basically, you'll get notified. We'll notify your ass. We'll be in touch. So yeah, Scream is the next one that's coming up. Aidan and Mark versus Scream. It's going to be like the Ghostbusters episode. We take on the whole franchise. But after that, listeners, we are going to take on The Bat. We're doing Batman. Not the entire franchise, because that would be mental. We're doing the Burton movies and the Schumacher movies as one thing, because they're kind of in their continuity. We haven't actually discussed this. We might do the 60s Batman, but that depends whether we can be bothered. So tune in.
Yeah, that's the main
tune
thing.
into that episode to see if we can be bothered with the Adam West Batman. I mean, I love it, but
It was my ritual at university because I would come home from lectures on a specific day. I think it was a Thursday, and it would always be on ITV3. I think it was about 3 o'clock. There'd be a double bill of 60s Batman. I'd have a cup of tea and Batman. It was the fucking best.
I mean, I've recently brought the Blu-ray of the entire Adam West season, so
I know you did, and I'm very jealous.
It's fucking great. But that aside, we're probably just going to be doing Burton and Schumacher. We may do the Nolans one day, but then that might be for a spin-off show. Wink. Because they are a trilogy. Wink. Anyway, that's that. And then after that, this is the one that our fans are going to be crazy for, because they know what, our fans have discerning taste. They're not that interested in Ghostbusters. They're not that interested. They might be interested in Scream. They like horror. They don't care about the mainstream comic book Batman movie. They want to get into Britain's own dominant franchise. The franchise that dominates Britain, undeniably. Wallace and Gromit. We're going to do Eighth Mark versus Wallace and Gromit for no particular reason. There's not a new one coming out anytime soon, although they are in the process of making a new one. We just felt like doing it, which is the most Kino Inferno thing we could possibly do. So we're going to, and also obviously it's a franchise where most of the films are less than an hour long, so that's always good.
That definitely
can
helps.
Bash it out in a day.
Yeah, that's going to be so nice.
So yeah, basically, stay tuned. There's going to be more sooner than you know. We don't currently have an estimate for when season 2 is going to start airing. That is something that we'll...
No, but we will keep you updated.
Because we want to record a lot more before release than we did this time. Because...
And I think we both might want a little bit of time off.
Yeah. So keep your ears peeled, listeners. Keep your eyes peeled. Keep your bum clean. And, Mark, say goodbye.
Well, I will say goodbye, but before I do, I just want to say thank you to everybody that's listened to the entire series, because you're troopers for sticking through some of these epics that we've recorded. So thank you so much for listening through Series 1, and we will be back soon. And it is goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me. And it's goodbye from me, the Terminator. I know now why you cry. Something I can never do.
We'll be back.
Oh, fuck, that's way better. Why didn't I do that? Alright, see you later, fuckers.
Bye.
President Schwarzenegger.
That is me.
Springfield has reached crisis levels. I've narrowed your choices down to 5 unthinkable options.
I was elected to lead, not to read.